Out of the gates and ready to go. Hot Mike with Hutton and Withrow underway across the OutKick Network. Live from 6th and Peabody with EA Beer and Old Smoky Moonshine from the Beer Garden, where Craig Campbell is kicking off CMA Fest Week the right way, raising money for a great charity for the Kitty Campbell Foundation, raising money for colon cancer research. He lost his father to cancer, and he's doing his part for the third leading cause of death among men and women when it comes to cancer deaths. Chad, we have a lot to get to. We've got a lot coming up throughout the show, including Mark Cannizzaro from the New York Post, who covers the PGA Tour, where today, in a stunning news, Jay Monahan releases a memo to the PGA Tour members announcing that the PGA Tour has merged with the LIV Tour. The same Jay Monahan who admonished players a year ago, last June, for taking the bag, taking the money, and lacking loyalty, trusting in the American Tour, the PGA Tour. A year later, to the month, the PGA Tour has merged with the Saudi-backed public investment firm, which is LIV. Craziness.
That dirty blood money from Saudi Arabia must have suddenly been cleaned over the past year, because now it's perfectly acceptable for the PGA Tour to accept that money, where a year ago it wasn't acceptable for guys like Phil Mickelson and Brooks Koepka and Dustin Johnson and Bryson DeChambeau to leave and take that money from the Saudi wealth fund. A lot of thoughts, and we're going to get into all of them, and there's a lot of angles to unpack from this story, but I do want to start with this. 1 year ago to the day, in Canada at the Canadian Open, which is going on this week now, Jay Monahan, in a room full of PGA Tour players, asked the question, have you ever had to apologize for being a member of the PGA Tour in regards to the LIV Tour? And here we are a year later, and this is a merger between these tours, Hutton. This is an amazing day for the golf fan across the world, in America, everywhere, because you don't have to worry about a competing brand taking away the players you want to watch on the tour you watch most often. And make no mistake about it, people are watching the PGA Tour. They're not watching LIV Tour on television. But what the LIV Tour was able to accomplish was pushing away from the narrative that it was PGA Tour rules and nothing else mattered, and they set the standard and the barrier for everyone else, and if you couldn't get in, it didn't matter because they had the rule book. They wrote it, they controlled it. Well, now there's a shared experience with that rule book, and LIV Tour helps write it as well.
Last June, LIV, they teed off with their first event at Centurion Club in London. And when within minutes of teeing off, Commissioner Jay Monahan issued a memo, just like he did this morning, a year ago to the month, and he suspended the 17 players that joined LIV Tour. And in the memo, the quote was, for turning their backs on the PGA Tour by willfully violating a regulation. They then preached morality. You see this all over the place. They preach morality and loyalty, when in regards to why he was saying all that, it's just to keep the PGA Tour as we knew it then. It wasn't about morality. It was about surviving. And in order to survive, this morning, the memo was released to the PGA players, which, by the way, speaking to a couple of them, I was on speakerphone during a practice round at the Canadian Open this morning. They found out at 9:55, either through social media or through the memo that Monahan pushed out. Apparently, no one saw this coming from the PGA end of it. And from the LIV Tour end of it, the top players are saying, or at least acknowledging, they weren't expecting it either. But what this comes down to is LIV taking over. And honestly, they took over last August based on a court ruling and a concurring opinion following the ruling where the judge actually sided with the PGA Tour. But Chad, they then appealed, and the Saudis, with their $750 billion, jumped on board with the antitrust lawsuit that Phil Mickelson and others were a part of. And what that led to was, in the appeal, more time to kick the can down the road with their billions upon billions of dollars through the legal system. And we were going to see discovery on both sides. And the PGA Tour didn't want discovery to happen. And they blinked. I don't know how much you look at it based on the merger that took place today, where Judge Freeman, it was Judge Beth Lapson Freeman in the U.S. Northern District of California. She found originally that the Saudi-backed LIV Tour, the players that were kept out of the FedEx Cup down in Memphis, they didn't have any leg to stand on in terms of them not being allowed to play. But then came an appeal. And, Chad, the quote of memories fade and documents may disappear over time, thus a full halt of discovery would harm the litigation process. And then she pointed to the tour's gamesmanship claim, saying they have so much money they just want to keep it in the courts, as unconvincing. This happened last month. And you look at the wealth fund and everything involved, and the blood money that apparently Phil Mickelson fell on the sword for ends up backing the pockets of the PGA Tour today.
Amazing day for Phil Mickelson.
Yeah.
Amazing day for Brooks Koepka. Everyone else who kept receipts, Koepka clearly did, calling out Brandel Chambly, saying a wellness check on Chambly today.
Guess who has to cover the tour now?
And guess who may end up resigning, honestly. I mean, I don't know how you come back from that. If you're him with everything, I mean, he has been the most outspoken critic of Saudi Arabia and the LIV Tour throughout. I don't know how you go out there and try to put on a brave face and act like now this is all okay. And keep in mind, all this talk from Monahan and a lot of people about LIV and about the morality of it and everything else. And Hutton, I think you've done a good job illustrating the hypocrisy from a lot of different levels of business.
It's clicks and
and
headlines
different
and BS.
Sports leagues and everyone else that take that money on a routine basis, and then
they don't care.
Want to speak out when other people take
the money from the advertisers who are also Saudi-backed.
Well, this is
the PGA Tour.
Maybe the big takeaway for me in all of this. All that criticism about Saudi Arabia, all that criticism about where the money's going, all the criticism about human rights violations, everything else. Yasir Al-Rumayyan, who is the governor of Saudi Arabia's sovereign wealth fund, is now the chairman of the board of directors of the PGA Tour. Let that sink in for a second. The guy with the key to the vault of all of the money of the sovereign government of Saudi Arabia is the chairman of the board of directors of the PGA Tour. After all of that talk from Jay Monahan, this is now the situation that we find ourselves in today. This is a groundbreaking golf story. I would argue it's a groundbreaking sports story, not just for America, but for the world. Certainly a historic day in the United States and Saudi Arabia. This is not the end of it. This is the beginning, and I think it's just an incredible story all around. We're going to get into a lot of it, and Hutton, Jay Monahan did not duck the fact that he's going to get crushed over this. In a quote, he said, "In the short term, I expect a lot of questions and criticism, but in the long run, players who stayed with the PGA Tour will see they benefited in many ways." I would ask this question, Jay Monahan, on that last part. How?
Yeah.
How did the guys who turned down hundreds of millions of dollars to only a year later see that they're going to take that money and have a chance to play in all the tournaments they want to on PGA Tour? How are you going to argue to those players who stood behind you and argued every single talking point you threw out there? Tell me how they're going to benefit in the long run when they turned away that money, and now they're right back in the same spot that Bryson DeChambeau, Brooks Koepka, Phil Mickelson, all of these guys who were the enemies of the state being the PGA Tour, they're now welcomed back with open arms.
Yep.
Explain to me how those that stayed with the PGA Tour, repeated your talking points you wanted them to, defended you at all costs. How are they really going to be okay in the long run? They're going to be okay, but they're not the winners in this. It's pretty clear to me LIV Tour wins. And the guys who took the bag and left and are now welcomed back in with this merger, they're the winners in this story.
Well, Jay Monahan remains in power from the PGA Tour perspective. But you're right. PGA Tour is now bought and has sold itself to the Saudis. Here's what the Tour merger comes down to through the memo, where Monahan sent out a memo to the PGA Tour members this morning. Many of them, the players that Chad just described, found out on social media firsthand, not through the memo, while they were at the golf course. The PGA Tour, the DP World Tour, and the Public Investment Fund, which is LIV Golf, they're going to combine commercial operations. The mission, tell me if you've heard this before. It's no longer to grow the game of golf, which is the BS that Mickelson and others were pumping last year. Now it's to unify the game of golf on a global basis. The new collectively owned for-profit entity is nameless, but it's to be determined on the name of the new tour. The LIV Tour will make they will make a massive capital investment to the new entity, name to be determined, and facilitate the growth of the new tour. The PGA Tour will remain as a 501c6 tax-exempt organization, which is also ludicrous. PGA Tour retains administrative oversight of the PGA Tour, including sanctioning of events, but now LIV Tour is going to be sanctioned in order to participate and vice versa. They've also mutually agreed to end all pending litigation. This is really what it comes down to. They've agreed to end all pending litigation between the participating parties, and the process to be established for players to reapply for the PGA Tour or the DP World Tour membership after the 2023 season will be determined, which says nothing. There's a huge open-ended area there that must be described. But as far as who's running things, it's the same group that Mickelson and others joined up with last year and took the money. And specifically, the man in charge was sitting right next to Jay Monahan this morning, Yasir Al-Rumayyan. Listen to him.
We are investing in the game that everybody loves. The control is not there. It's the governance that we would like to have. It's going to be, a vote system and a board, and the majority and the board will be with the PGA. It's not going to be with us.
He did not respond.
Yeah, and he's now running the PGA Tour. Meanwhile, Chad, you can go down and listen to Jay Monahan, who is he was asked what the expectations are for fans and the fan response to today's news.
A lot of people have been reading about the tension. And I said previously that we were going down our path, they were going down theirs. And today, that tension goes away. The litigation is dropped. We're announcing to the world that on behalf of this game, we're coming together. It's less about how people respond today, and it's all about how people respond in 10 years.
Let's do this. My man is back.
See, here's what happened, Chad. The PGA Tour bluffed last year. They didn't have any real balls with this. They bluffed. And LIV Tour has the bank accounts and the bankroll and the backing of the Saudis to end up where we're not 5 years down the road, right? We were doing hypothetical topics last summer. Where are we 10 years from now? What's going to happen to the PGA Tour 5 years from now? Is LIV going to sustain who they are and this tour being on, a television network that we're not watching? No one's watching it. The answer is not only are they going to do that, the PGA Tour will bow to them within 12 months. That's shocking. And the same dude that was preaching all this dissension is now handshake and hugs and glorifying the merger based on the fact there's no more dissension.
Yeah, and I picked apart one part from that quote we just heard, the audio we heard from Al-Rumayyan, who said from the very beginning the whole initiative was how to grow the game of golf. And I think that was achieved today, was exactly that. And that's what Phil Mickelson was arguing, and that's what he's saying. And it's hard to argue with them right now on that. I do think the game of golf has grown because of all this. Now, Jay Monahan coming out and saying, that's not about how fans react or people react today. It's about 10 years from now. That is a convenient statement from someone who is rightfully going to get crushed today.
But also,
because
Chad,
he's a big loser in this,
and
he can't acknowledge it, but that's the case.
But they're
also going to stand to benefit financially.
I can't stand hypocrites.
Yep.
Someone who will look someone in the eye and lie to their face. And that's exactly what the PGA Tour did to its own membership. And Monahan is saying, it's not about today, it's about 10 years from now. Don't react. It's not about today's reaction. He's the same dude who reacted the minute they teed off in London last year. Within minutes. Look in the mirror. And the fact that, the mergers, PGA Tour players, they're pissed. How could you not be? Coming up in 45 minutes, they have a players' meeting at the Canadian Open with Monahan. And my guess is he needs to bring the hard hat in there because they didn't know about this until everyone else found out and did a double take to see if CNBC's report was accurate and true because it looked like something on April Fool's Day.
Well, a little preview of that meeting that's coming up. There's going to be a lot of questions from the players that are there. He's going to get a pass because a lot of the top name players that would have been offered a lot from LIV aren't going to be at this meeting because they're not playing in this tournament. But he's still going to get some tough questions from these players. And Hutton, his defense is going to be, you all stand to gain big time financially from this deal. Trust us on that. This is going to be beneficial for you. Now, the retort that I would have if I'm one of the players was, you told us not to take the money a year ago because of the morality of it and for loyalty purposes to the PGA Tour. And now your defense of this merger and this deal is you stand to gain a lot of money. We all do from this. That is hypocrisy. And that is what was at the root of all of this for Monahan. And it showed its face today with this merger and represents a positive development in bringing harmony to men's professional golf. That's what Augusta National said about this. So I'm trying to look at this from all angles. And when you look at it from the fans' perspective, that's the point I want to get across is I do think overall this is a good thing for the golf fan now moving forward. And you've got the Royal and Ancient Golf Club acknowledging that runs the Open Championship, the British Open. And you've got Augusta National acknowledging that this now brings harmony to professional golf. Ultimately, I think that's the good part for the fans.
Yeah, but the major tournaments, the championships, they were kind of the middleman in this. They facilitated the LIV Tour players interacting and winning championships, major championships, in front of the PGA Tour professionals, right? They were kind of the middleman in all of the – there wasn't a ton of LIV Tour talk with everyone we've interacted with. And then – the court rulings and everything else play a huge factor. And by the way, the PGA Tour, they're not the first. They won't be the last to take Saudi money. But the way that it was handled a year ago from the public image of the PGA Tour, let's wave the flag. Stand and salute the PGA. Thank you, Rory. We love you. You're now the voice and the face of golf. Screw Phil Mickelson. Brooks Koepka can go, sit on and spin. And meanwhile, the truth is, they were scared. And they knew that they were going to lose in court, and ultimately, they didn't have the financial backing to go toe-to-toe with the Saudi-backed league that has $700 billion in this wealth fund, which is just nuts. But UFC, WWE, and many of your favorite artists that you listen to on the radio or through streaming, they're all doing special shows over in Saudi, and the PGA Tour's teaming up because nowadays that's how you stay afloat. You sell yourself, you whore yourself out, and the PGA Tour has done that a year after they claimed that their current players and champions and people that they pointed to as the stars on tour did the same thing. And Mickelson I haven't seen where he's said anything yet. But considering the way that the public reaction was to him, he wouldn't show up to certain tournaments. Ridiculous.
Well,
they wouldn't follow him on CBS's coverage or ESPN's coverage on Thursday and Friday at the Masters, but all of a sudden they had to because he's at the top of the leaderboard fighting for a championship.
Cue up the gif of Vince McMahon, coming out of being announced.
Yeah.
Next time Phil Mickelson goes up to a podium anywhere for a press conference, that's going to be his swagger coming into this. I want to close this segment with this right here because this is where it all comes down to. And Allie in our YouTube chat, by the way, watch us on YouTube. I'll interact with you there as well, as making some great points about the almighty dollar. And this is the hypocrisy of all of O.J. Monahan, and this is the best way I can sum it up quickly. People only preach about loyalty and integrity and morality when they're getting outbid. And that is all Jay Monahan had to fall on, was these people are evil, they're dirty, their money is bloody, and the PGA Tour stands for what is all holy and righteous in the world of golf. And if you care at all about your legacy and your integrity, then you stay with us and make maybe less money, but your legacy will be intact. And they had to rely on that because they could not outspend the sovereign Saudi government. And a year later, when it benefited them financially, to end this lawsuit and to take their money in advertising dollars,
yes,
which is a part of this deal, the PGA and Jay Monahan they're going to step in front of a microphone and tell you, I know you're going to react negatively to this now, but we did what's right for the game of golf. Give me a break. This is all about money. It's always been about money. Do not preach integrity, morality, anything else. It's about this right here, the almighty dollar. And guess what won today? The almighty dollar. But I will argue also the winners today, golf fans.
Sure.
Because I think a united golf professional world is good for the sport.
I just hate people that hide behind certain things. And that's what Phil Mickelson was pointing out. He didn't disagree with the fact that he took the money. But he said, I'm going to change the way this tour is governed. And he has. Because he was saying, while they were preaching loyalty and respect and morality and, hey, keep the tour together, don't let the Saudis take over, Mickelson was saying, you're fake, you're greedy, you're lying, and you're bluffing. And I point this out because he said it in one of the initial comments. They tried to charge him like $1 million for the rights to his own highlights for the match on TNT, the PGA Tour.
That was the last straw for him.
Well, think about that, though.
Yeah.
And the simple fact that here we are, 12 months later, is ridiculous, considering all of the crap that they fed their own players who found out the same way we did. Coming up, we'll switch gears. Michael McHenry will join us. The top storylines across Major League Baseball, including a top pitcher who is now back on the injured list. And a little bit later, we'll dive further into LIV and PGA. And all of a sudden, there's no more rivalry. It is like a Vince McMahon script. You know, the two rivals are now tag team partners taking over the world of golf. This is Hot Mike with Hutton and Withrow.
So let's see the video that John Morant was dumb enough to have posted. A guy said this: John Morant has more money to go anywhere in the world, and he chooses to go to Instagram Live. Now, John Morant is a fool. We know John Morant is a fool. It was two fools sitting down, Jalen Rose and John Morant, for a ridiculously idiotic fake interview a few months ago, all right? So John Morant does what every NBA player does. He hangs out. There's always a little guy. Usually it's a little white guy. But watch this video. John Morant's going to flash a gun. All right, you're that stupid, fine. But watch the little idiot driving the car as you watch the video that ultimately is going to cost John Morant a ton of money. We can't believe he's any dumber than he is. He's already the dumbest dude walking except for Dwight Howard, and we'll get into that. But watch this video. There they are. Look at this idiot right here. He's looking around like, hey, am I cool? Oh, he's dancing like a little, so John Morant's trying. John Morant looks like a girl. I hate to say it, but he does. Look at it. I mean, he flashes a gun, and then they put the thing down. Now it's been deleted. But, I mean, his little buddies look like, I don't know. They kind of look like the Bengals back in. Look at this little guy. There's always a little punk like that hanging out with a star. There's always a little punk. Shaq had a little white guy. I remember when we were filming Blue Chips. Everybody usually has a little white guy. But I'm telling you, this dude is about as hard as this cup of coffee. There ain't nothing hard. He looks like a girl. Seriously, if I were advising John Morant, you know what I would tell him? Cut your hair and get serious about your craft. Just change everything about you. Seriously. Just change everything about you. You're a great player. You're a great talent. You have a great family, although those people have lost their mind as well, his family. But I'd tell you, get serious about your craft. Put your life into your craft. Forget about the other crap. Cut your hair, change your look, change your thing, change everything about you, or grow your hair longer. I don't care. But what I usually used to tell people, and I know I'm the old guy, but it always works, cut your hair, get serious about your craft. I've told guys in business, cut your hair, get serious about your craft. Now, well, that's racist. Hey, what does hair have to do with it? No, it just means that you're changing up what you are doing. It means you are getting serious about what you should be serious about. Because let's be honest, this guy's career could be over. I don't know. You get playing with a gun, next thing you know, you could end up in jail. Career could be over. So get serious about the one thing that works the most. Did you ever see Michael Jordan, Magic Johnson, Isaiah Thomas, Karl Malone, John Stockton, Barkley? Did you ever see him with, like, I don't know, something to distract? You never did. Do you ever see LeBron James with something to distract? No. LeBron James serious about his craft. He's not out there trying to put purple in his hair, or put green in his hair, or make his hair look like my mother's back in the 1970s where you had the beehive going like Miranda. No, you never saw that. Of course you don't. I'm serious, you don't. You know, the girl that comes in the office with purple hair is never the leading seller in the office. It's just, she's just not. The guy that comes in with all of a sudden a face tattoo is not the leading producer in the company. He just never is. People that are serious about their craft get things done. People that know and understand, hey, look, we got to get this done. And if I'm John Morant, you can play kid, you can play tough guy, you can play a little child, you can play try to look like a girl, I don't know. You can have all that feminine energy that John Morant has off the court and your little effeminate friends off the court, but it's a man's league.
Live from 6th and Peabody with Yeehaw Beer and Old Smoky Moonshine, the Country Music Association Festival going on. It's always this week in June.
That was so official, Hutton. I've never heard it referred to as the Country Music Association Festival.
The CMAs, yeah, we've got...
that's a long way to say it. I've always heard CMA Fest. I'm getting thirsty back here, by the way.
Celebrity
everyone
cornhole.
walking by with these drinks, these cocktails in the middle of the day, really making me thirsty.
Country music artist Craig Campbell hosting his ninth annual.
Dylan's laughing because he thought I meant another form of thirsty, is what I was talking about.
Well done.
Dual meaning, Dylan, okay?
CraigCampbell.tv is where you can support their efforts in colon cancer research, the third leading cause of cancer-related deaths in both men and women. We're great to be out here and helping support these efforts. Craig's been a great friend, and he's been a part of some songwriter nights and other philanthropic things that we've done over the years. Great guy, and he's got a great group here. Everyone from Chip Eston to David Nell and
Jared
many
Neiman is in the championship match right now against Craig. And then I think Craig's going to hop over at the end of this hour to join us for a little bit.
Awesome.
Craig can give us an update about how much money he's raised as well.
No doubt. Money raised, that's what the PGA Tour did today through the Saudis. I'm curious, so coming up in 30 minutes, I mean, I would pay to be a fly on the wall in this meeting at the Canadian Open. But here's my question, my initial reaction to what I saw on social media, which was several tour players. You can tell they're frustrated. You can tell they're angry. But it's difficult to find anyone associated with both tours to come on and talk about it, right?
Yep.
And if I'm a PGA Tour player, what reason do you have to stay silent? What reason do you have to zip up when they were begging you to speak out a year ago? And now they're telling you to pipe down and let us handle the PR that you didn't even know about until Twitter told you this morning.
Can I read you a text I got from a PGA Tour associate of ours that actually gets paid by the PGA Tour?
Yep.
This was a response to an interview request from Hot Mike here on OutKick. Sent him a text, not going to reveal who it is, but a PGA Tour employee. Said, I would love to join you guys, but I'm going to have to pass until there's more clarity. given I work for the tour and all the broadcast companies, we still don't really know what all of this means totally. I hope you understand and look forward to discussing when we have more information.
Sure.
That's fair.
Right.
Because even in the statement, this is one interesting part of this I haven't really seen many people touch on. When the PGA and Jay Monahan is saying, we're going to figure out how to incorporate team golf into the PGA Tour. Because that's a big element in LIV Tour. So part of this merger is going to be, they're not all going to be team golf tournaments, but I do think we're going to sprinkle in a couple, 3, 4 team golf events, Ryder Cup style, that's going to be these LIV teams, that concept on the PGA Tour. That's what I took that as when he's saying we got to figure out how to incorporate that now.
Yeah, but also the Al Ramayan, in a quote that he had on CNBC, where, I mean, he's just saying that they're going to continue to negotiate and not even negotiate, just talk through ideas, and everything's on the table or not available. They're not sold on any one way to do things in this friendly merger all of a sudden. It's kumbaya. After a war was declared, now it's a pat on the butt. Good job. It was a fun 12 months. Everyone's rich now, which is crazy. And I again, the biggest names in golf have a voice. They can speak out. And oh, by the way, how about sponsors like KPMG that immediately removed their logos from Phil Mickelson's hat? Ugly logo, by the way. But the idea that sponsors left those players, but backed the PGA Tour players, and here are the sponsors going, what do we do now? Because publicly, we backed the loyalty and morality that they were preaching. And now it's about, well, I guess we got to stick on if we love the game of golf. We got to grow the game of golf. It's BS. On both sides. It's not grow the game of golf. It's not continue to push and have new fans of the game of golf globally. That's all BS. They took the money, both sides, and that's what they're not saying, but that's exactly what they've done.
Well, I still think with LIV, though, they're basically still paying the money. I mean, they did. I can't argue with the fact they grew the game and changed it because they came in and disrupted the whole system.
Where's
and they
Tiger
did
Woods?
that by just spending a ton of money.
Where is Tiger Woods? If Tiger leads the way, if he leads the charge on this, he reportedly turned down $750 million guaranteed to join the LIV Tour. And a year later, if he wants to play again on tour, he's partnered with LIV.
No, my point is, I don't know. PGA Tour is completely full of it. Totally, completely. Hypocrites, all of them, they look dumb.
But now we get to see everyone.
Everyone who just regurgitated those talking points, those company lines from Jay Monahan now looks foolish. And they're going to be pissed off at Jay Monahan of the PGA Tour for being made to look foolish by echoing what he's saying, and then a year later they merge. I can't really call the LIV Tour full of it right now. They said we're doing this to grow the game of golf.
Well, I'm calling them full of it last year when they were saying they were doing this to push awareness.
Oh, you're talking about the players.
Yes, but that was...
Yeah, no, the players were always saying...
Monahan's now echoing that.
Yeah, I'm saying the LIV Tour in general. Like when Al Ramayan says our goal was to grow the game of golf, and today we feel like we've accomplished that, he's not lying. But how did they grow the game of golf, and how did they accomplish it? They just pumped a ton of money into it to disrupt the entire system.
Right.
When they could not initially buy the PGA Tour, they bought some of their best players. So that affected the PGA Tour's bottom line. They hated that. They had to pay more money to keep their good players on their tour. They had to worry about those major champions that left. We're not talking about just all scrubs. Major champion golfers, big celebrities that left their tour. So that money disrupted their business. And now it's completely disrupted the PGA Tour to the point that they've had to merge. But you know what LIV Tours continue to do through all this? Lose money. Like they're just spending. Because what is part of the deal? They're going to have to take a lot of the money they were spending on players and pump that into advertising to the PGA Tour. So I've always thought, now look, they've got a huge tolerance for money losses and all of this. This is sort of a grand experience to see if you can disrupt an industry. And they've come in and successfully done it. This could be a case study for future sports and future business. I don't think they're done with PGA Tour. I don't think the Saudi Arabia, the sovereign wealth fund, is done disrupting industries and disrupting leagues. It's not going to stop here.
Here's where it's not the same, though, for other major leagues. The PGA Tour professional, the players were claiming they were independent contractors, right? That's what they were suing over, was the antitrust and the lawsuits there that Mickelson and everyone else, I think it was 10 players, and then Saudi came in and financially backed the lawsuit. I don't know if the other leagues can say that because you're under contract. Meanwhile, you qualify for certain tournaments through the PGA Tour, and the professionals choose whether or not they're going to play that specific weekend based on sponsorships and other things. So I think it is a case study for that. Like pro wrestling, that's what WWE guys claim, that they're technically not under contract but free to go anywhere, anytime, which apparently they're not. But that's what the tour players argued and what they appealed, and what the judge said, that we're not going to pause discovery. We're not going to hear this case for a year or maybe more. And in the meantime, both sides are going to turn over the books. And that led to today. Craziness.
Yeah, it is. Ali in our YouTube chat says, should we expect LIV MLB 2.0 or LIV NBA? If I'm Saudi Arabia watching this chaos, that smells like a cash cow. It would be a lot more expensive to do this with the NBA or Major League Baseball.
But a lot of those leagues,
because
though,
the teams,
are already
the
in
amount
bed
of,
with them.
No, they're already making money. But I'm saying, what if that's not enough for the Saudi wealth fund, the sovereign wealth fund? They don't just want to be in bed with them and trying to make money together. They want to own it.
Yeah.
If they want to own something else, look, they don't own the PGA Tour because they're not the majority stakeholder right now. Still, the PGA is, but they own a big share of it. They now have a say. They got a seat at the table. Again, Yasser Al-Rumayyan is the governor of Saudi Arabia's sovereign wealth fund. He's the chairman of the board for the PGA Tour now. They have a seat at the table.
Not just that, they own it. You know, they're the financial backing now. And consider this, 24 hours ago, Phil Mickelson was the pariah forever. And now we sit here and see that all of a sudden he could be considered the Ryder Cup captain again within 24 hours based on the sentiment of Jay Monahan. Coming up, Craig Campbell will join us later in the show. John McClain, Michael McHenry, and much more. And we have tons more reaction, different branches on this tree to discuss as the LIV Tour and the PGA Tour have merged today. A lot more coming on Hot Mic.
Primary complaint is when you let somebody cross the street while you're driving and they purposely take their time when they see that they are waiting for you crossing the street. That is my primary complaint, and it drives me crazy.
My primary complaint is people who talk on speakerphone in public.
People that chew too loud.
Number one pet peeve, telemarketers. Number two pet peeve, when people don't understand the menu that they're serving. Number three pet peeve, when people ask for change but they have no quarters. Number four pet peeve, parallel parking.
My primary complaint is I can't just go to a bar and have a nice quiet beer. There's all this live music every freaking where. Like, I'm just trying to go to a bar, relax, have a beer, watch the game, but no, we gotta have these guitar players and these bands. Why can't I just hang out and just relax, have a beer, and watch the Memphis Grizzlies? I mean, is that too much to ask?
I do not appreciate or condone anybody that litters. I think you got to keep your planet clean. It's turning your nose up to everybody that has to clean your up with littering.
My primary complaint would be wobbly tables at restaurants.
Another pet peeve I have is no courtesy flushing. No one believes in that. I believe in it. Thank you. Another pet peeve I have is when people have AirPods in. Excuse me. Another pet peeve I have is when people have AirPods in and they're singing louder so everyone can hear what they're not supposed to listen to.
When people eat smelly food on the airplane.
Dishes left in the sink.
My primary complaint is when I'm out to eat with somebody and they bite their fork as they are putting the fork in their mouth to eat.
When people bite their fork and scrape that, and when they're eating dinner, you can hear like it's like nails on a chalkboard. Hell no.
My primary complaint is when people complain about me when I bite my fork.
Those folks who are in the airport talking on their cell phone very loud so everybody else can hear what they're saying, even though we really don't care.
My primary complaint are drivers who do not stop on a pedestrian crosswalk, period.
My last pet peeve is that when people text you, they text you that they're busy, or if you call them, they answer and say they can't talk. Either way, just don't respond. You can't text me, don't text me back, and if you can't answer the phone, don't answer the phone to tell me you can't talk.
Sixth and Peabody, our location, and it's the host for Craig Campbell's Celebrity Cornhole Tournament. And he wins his own tournament.
I did.
It's unbelievable.
It's terrible.
Country music artist
Feels like
Craig
it's not the
Campbell
first time
here.
you've won this tournament.
Man,
Yeah.
you know, I'm about 50-50 now after 9 years. So it's, man, a lot of the celebrities are finally, they're like, wait a minute, you know, you've won on more than half of these things. And so we're beginning to think it's rigged.
Yeah, but I mean, you brought in a ringer, right?
I didn't bring him in.
Oh,
That's
he
the
was
thing.
paired with you.
Yeah, he
just luck.
Yeah, well, he bid to be my partner.
Oh, okay. Well done.
Unsolicited.
Well done.
Yeah. So yeah.
I think there's a national scouting report put out there by Craig to find the best cornhole players in America.
Yeah. Chad's father
and then
used
that
to be
person
here.
just they
Tom
get a
Withrow.
benefactor and they bid a lot of money to play with Craig, and that's how he wins his tournament.
I'll be honest with you. Now, I will say, like, this is maybe I shouldn't admit this, but there was a few years ago, I talked to a buddy of mine, like, look, hey, if you'll bid, I will match it.
So we can win.
But we didn't. We lost. So I was like, I can't do that no more.
That's what happens when you try to rig the system.
Yeah, exactly.
My dad would love to play at some point, as you were saying. Tom Withrow loves to play a little cornhole.
All of the proceeds.
Is he good?
Oh, he is excellent.
My dad is
Greg.
good at any like
Excellent.
eagle eye. We call him eagle eye type game.
He doesn't hit the board.
Horseshoes, cornhole.
He does not hit the board.
darts, pool. Any of those games, he's really good.
He doesn't.
He doesn't. It's a swish. He doesn't hit the board.
No kidding.
He doesn't slide it. He tries to swish it. No bank shot.
They make movies about this guy.
Yeah,
Okay.
he's the hustler.
Yeah, he's the hustler that and it's easy for him to show up and sandbag.
Basically, like the guy you tried to bribe
Yeah.
to get to play with you when you didn't win the
I
tournament.
know it. Yeah.
So
okay.
CMA Fest week is here. It's always right here in the middle of June, early June, and you've done this now, the 9th annual cornhole tournament to benefit the Kenny Campbell Foundation. I know you touched on it last week with Chad, but it was a great turnout, and it's a great way to kick off the week for CMA Fest.
Yeah, we've been doing this for several years now. We had to take a couple of years off during that weird little
Nothing was open.
World shutdown situation.
Yeah. It's still the annual.
Yeah, but it's still the annual.
It needs to be.
And so we've had a lot of fun. We've over the course of 9 events, we've raised over $1 million, and it's because of people that are passionate about what we do, and the event is super fun. And it's just the idea that you go out here and throw bags, drink some cold beer,
Yep.
and raise money for colorectal cancer. It's awesome. And the crazy thing, when I started this, nobody in Nashville during CMA Fest was doing a cornhole tournament, and we all play cornhole on the road, and so nobody was doing it. And I was like, I took total advantage of that, and the slogan that I coined was cornholing for the colon. It just works.
It's perfect.
It just works.
It's perfect.
Yeah.
Hey,
Anything that rhymes always good.
You mentioned being on tour. Of all the tours you've been a part of, which one is most memorable? Which one comes to mind first? The best stories that you can or cannot tell?
Okay. When I first moved to Nashville, I was very fortunate to land some cool gigs.
You've been there and done that.
So I played piano. I was actually a piano player for a guy by the name of Tracy Bird.
Yep. Yeah.
So I played piano for Tracy Bird for about 2 years. That was super, super cool. So, and then I also was hired to play piano for a guy named Luke Bryan. So I played
Never
piano.
heard of him.
I played,
Did he ever make it?
No, so
Yeah.
he's an up-and-coming
Up-and-coming guy, yeah.
So, full circle, playing piano for Luke, and then in 2017, he reached out and said, "Hey, would you like to come out on tour with us for the Hunting, Fishing, Loving Everyday tour?" So that was really neat to be able to not only at one time I was Luke Bryan's piano player, now I get to open the show. That was really cool. So I would say the Luke Bryan tour is probably at the top of the list. Being on tour with Willie Nelson was pretty cool back in 2011.
Awesome.
I've done some cool things.
I mean, how much of it is just finding the right vibe with the people you're around on a tour like that? When you're opening for someone, when you're with a group, is that the main part of it?
It's all about the vibe. Just because, you're on stage for, especially when you're first of 3, you're 30 minutes on stage, and you got 20, 3.5 hours during the day to kind of hang out and chill with these guys. So
Yeah.
you have to be able to click off stage, and so that's more important than anything. And being on stage, being on tour with Luke Bryan was one of the coolest things, just because my band loved his band and I loved Luke, and it just worked.
What's this week like for an artist?
It's crazy.
For country music, it's jam-packed with fans, multiple venues, everything from the stadium shows at night, which are sold out, to the riverfront, to the amphitheater, to the Ryman and the Opry, and events like here at 6th and Peabody, where they can get 2,000 people in here if they want to.
So yeah, that's the thing is, we travel all the time, all over the United States, all over the world sometimes, and we go to the fans.
Yeah.
CMA Fest is the one time in the year that the fans come to us. So we try to take advantage of that, and we from technically it don't start till Thursday, but like today we're here on a Tuesday. People are here starting on Sunday, Monday, and we just try to cram it all. We try to see everybody, as many people as we can, starting on Monday all the way through Sunday during CMA Fest. And so we take advantage of that. It's crazy. It's exhausting. Come Monday, I'll probably sleep until noon. But it's a good week, and I embrace it. I look forward to it every year.
It's so unique too in music.
Very unique.
I've always been amazed that no other genre has been able to replicate it.
No.
There's not a festival to that level where everyone goes to one city and every artist is there taking part in it, like you have with country music. What is it about country music that lends itself to that?
I think the country music itself. If you think about what country music stands for, and the music and the lyrics, and it's historically been all about relation and how people can you write and you sing songs that people can relate to. And that's what country music's been all about from the inception of country music way back when. And so that over the course of decades, people, it's not a big deal to say, you know what, I know that I can go to Nashville on these days and I can see all of my favorite artists, and we're going to do that. And that's what it turned into, and it's obviously it's super successful.
And you're playing on Thursday at Ascend, right? At the
Saturday
at Ascend.
So Saturday, June 10th, I'll be at Ascend. It's the Dr. Pepper stage. We start at, I think, 3:30, and it's I'm gonna give them all I got for 30 minutes, boy.
And you're going to be back here tonight?
So I'll be back here
5
tonight
o'clock?
at 5 o'clock.
Nice.
We've got a few special guests that are going to get up and sing with us tonight.
Well, you know why it's 5 o'clock? Because of us. We requested. I'm serious.
No, because that's when you guys are like.
Yeah, because we're done, and we didn't want to have to try to talk over you. Would be a distraction.
We can deal with a lot of distractions, but I feel like the level of sound coming from
your
you
love
and
song
your band,
your love songs
might be a little difficult for us.
I can't overcome the love songs of Craig
We don't
Campbell.
like to cry on the show is what we're saying.
I appreciate you accommodating the show tonight.
I appreciate you accommodating us.
Have you seen the news today of PGA Tour and LIV Tour? They've merged.
No, I have not.
PGA Tour, a year after denouncing anyone that joined the LIV Tour, they have announced they are merging with the LIV and the Saudis. Isn't that crazy?
How's that going to work?
However the Saudis want it to work.
When it comes like the money,
well, right now you've got the Saudis just spending. They're just spending. So they've bought their way into every level of it. And I'm guessing it's probably like a 49% stake because they said the PGA still retains the majority of the shares. They retain the majority of the company. So we'll see how it works.
Wow.
It's a lot of money going around.
I have not heard about that. That's crazy.
You'll be playing a show overseas sometime, for PGA Tour or something.
Okay.
Hey, man, great to see you. Thank you for allowing us to be a part of this.
Man,
you're a great friend of ours. You always have been. So we've got your back on anything you're doing.
It's been a great day. Thank y'all for.
Did you raise the money you wanted?
Yes.
Good.
No. I mean, every year's above and beyond, and we haven't even counted the silent auction. So I mean, even like if we stopped it right now, everything's where we wanted to be, and then some. And we haven't even counted the silent auction. So it's been a great day.
Well, hopefully you'll be back here with Old Smoky and Yeehaw at 6th and Peabody next year too.
Yes. Today, the Yeehaw, Old Smoky, 6th and Peabody has been amazing. Been top notch. With hospitality, venue, stage, all that, it's been top notch, and we absolutely, I foresee this being a great relationship for years to come.
Plus, it's a home game for us. We can just step out of our studio and come over here.
I love it.
So it's perfect.
We're going to stick around and shotgun beers with you on stage.
Let's
at 5.
go.
It'll be good. Good to see you, man.
Yes, sir. Good to see you guys.
Craig Campbell,
thank you, man.
one of the best in the town. Check him out at craigcampbell.tv. You can also join their mission to raise awareness and funds for a cure for colon cancer, the third leading cause of death among cancer deaths for both men and women. And Chad, the show rolls on. We've got a lot to hit.
We got a scheduling change. Michael McHenry's going to come up next.
Good.
So we've shuffled some things around, so we'll talk some baseball. And we'll continue talking about what is the biggest story in the sports world, which is the merger between the PGA Tour and the LIV Tour.
And at some point, in 5 minutes, they are supposed to begin a meeting at the Canadian Open with Jay Monahan and the PGA Tour with its players. So as that comes about and we get news trickling out of that.
I would guess within 10 or 15 minutes, someone that's in that meeting may be texting a member of the media, and we'll get some information from that meeting while it's happening. I think pretty quickly we're going to get some reports about what's going on in that meeting.
Craig, final thought. What score did you have? And I'm curious if Chad believes that his father could beat you.
I don't think he could. On
cornhole.
Well, we the final game was close. And like Jared has been here. Jared Neiman has been here every year. He's getting better every year.
The rematch.
Yeah, and we were in the finals together. So it was close. It was close. But
my father would need air conditioning to be able to compete. He's 79, just turned 79, so the heat might get to him. He'd be an advantage.
That's part of the sandbagging. They're doing it right now to you.
No,
it's part of the sandbagging.
It needs to be a controlled climate for Tom to really excel.
This is the beginning of the hustling stages.
Michael McKendry joins us as we kick off hour number 2. We've got John McClain and more opinion and thoughts and reaction to what the players are told in the meeting with Jay Monahan, which is taking place in just several minutes from right now. Stay tuned. More coming with Hot Mike with Hutton and Withrow across the OutKick network.
What you're experiencing is the bold taste of a Southern legend. Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey, authentic Tennessee mountain-style spirits. We believe in crafting flavors that were born from tradition but defy expectation, and pioneering a new experience with every sip. Because if it doesn't do this, it ain't this. Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey. Come on.
Welcome into OutKick the show. I am Clay Travis, your fearless leader.
I am going to continue to argue that sports is one of the great unifying forces in all of American life. ESPN is a sinking ship. Democrats are now the party of the white, woke college graduate.
We live in a land of participation trophies.
You gotta lean into the turns. You really gotta lean into the turns.
When Leah Thomas walked in that first day, it got silent, and every girl was uncomfortable.
Very difficult to go back-to-back years in the NFL with the #1 overall pick.
I've been out of LA long enough to have forgotten that libs, no matter how ridiculous the scenario, are gonna live. Another week of inflation, another week with Biden with COVID, and another set of losers to crown. People don't watch the WNBA on TV, in person, on a plane, on a train, on a bus, or on purpose.
The scary thing, Tommy, is in the history of this government, I've never seen them give anything back that they've taken.
Oh no, they never do.
And they won't.
We've seen coaches throw water bottles. We've seen coaches act like idiots. We've seen coaches slap other coaches. But I think if you're involved in carjacking, you're inherently a rotten human being. The level of stupid that sometimes gets on our YouTube chat just gives me a headache. You're born a male, play with males. You're born a female, play with females. Don't at me about it, people.
I believe this person is the greatest player anybody alive will ever see. How can you hate Derek Jeter? A guy's on-base percentage tells me his batting eye, and a guy's slugging percentage tells me if he's a threat. That's the kind of guy that throws a no-hitter, that effectively wild guy.
Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey, a bold taste of a Southern legend.
Just like that, the second hour is here for Hot Mic with Hutton and Withrow across the OutKick Network. Glad you're with us. If you're watching on YouTube, we'll hope you'll subscribe. Hit that like button as you follow along with the show. You can join Chad in the chat as well. And if you haven't subscribed, certainly do that. Pass along the show to your friends. We certainly appreciate it, and we appreciate all of the great radio partners across the OutKick Network if you're listening right now. Chad, a lot to get to.
OutKick YouTube channel, by the way.
Yep.
Easiest way to find us. Just search OutKick.
The echo here, yes. PGA Tour and LIV Tour, they have merged, and there's a lot to get to with that. We've got Mark Cannizzaro from the New York Post, who covers the PGA Tour. He'll be with us coming up in an hour. Taking place right now, at least that's the way it was advertised, is Jay Monahan for the PGA Tour speaking with the players at the Canadian Open, which is just getting underway. And there are reports, Chad, that there are players who are not participating in this tournament that have demanded a phone line and a conference line to get in. And as of a couple of minutes ago, that had not been provided to them. So buckle up, because I mentioned 40 minutes ago or so, 30 minutes ago, if I'm a tour player right now, I am speaking my mind, because what good does it do to follow, the beta mentality of Jay Monahan today, based on the way he treated things a year ago and now, and the trash that he's pushing out there to grow the game of golf.
Don't you think that ultimately Jay Monahan's going to be forced to resign when all this goes through?
So this from Dan Rappaport. Asked a bunch of PGA Tour players, how will Jay Monahan survive this? From one just now, quote, he won't, he can't, end quote. But the guy who won't and can't just facilitated this without consulting the players, and that's coming from the players who found out on social media or through the memo that was sent out this morning at 9:55. You wouldn't see this in Major League Baseball. Michael McHenry joins us, MLB analyst, Pirates analyst.
Strong union.
Great contributor for us here at OutKick. Michael, great to have you back on the show. Hope things are well. And let's start with this. You had to push back your appointment with us to join it because you were in a car accident. It appears you're okay because you're joining the show, but I hope everyone's okay, and your loyalty will never be questioned.
I appreciate it. I just was hoping for a walkout song. Like it came in like a wrecking ball or something. But yeah, I'm looking forward to it, guys. I love talking to you guys every chance I get. You're a blast. I've enjoyed listening to all the stuff you're talking with the LIV Tour. I think it's interesting.
What was your reaction when you saw that news today?
I think it's going to happen more. I think everybody thinks all these unions are so tight and they're in a great place, but MLB, NFL, NBA, there's a reason why they've tried it in the NBA. They've tried it in the NFL before to do something a little bit different. The thing is if you can get the players on board, you win. That's all it takes. And with baseball, I think it's really interesting to think about because, it has been a literal, nothing else has ever been able to compete with it. Nothing's ever come close. Nothing's ever really been tried except rumors, which happened a couple years ago that I heard about. And the reality of it is, it's such a worldwide sport, and the best players aren't necessarily from the United States anymore. So you can look at this a little bit different when you think about MLB and the union, player-wise. Is it getting stronger, or is it getting strong enough, I should say, as the MLB is actually getting, because they are just printing money.
Jacob deGrom back to the injured list, the 60-day list. What do you make of this recent news and the fact that he's been banged up?
It's tough, and that's why a lot of teams stay away from him. I mean, you're talking about a guy that's 5 years, $180 million. $180 million. I mean, that's not just a couple cup of coffees. That's a franchise or two of all the coffees. I mean, it's remarkable what this guy's made. He's been hurt a lot. If you can get him for a partial time and keep him healthy, but the more he has elbow issues, you got to think, they're probably doing Prolo, PRP, all types of different things, probably even stem cell to regenerate, regrow these tendons and ligaments that are obviously getting worn and torn. So the fact is he's going to be paid $40 million next year on a team that's going to be really, really good. They're relevant now, top 10 team right now. If they had him, they may be the best team in baseball. So you're just hoping he's okay if you're a Texas Ranger fan, and all the other teams are patting themselves on the back for not signing the best player on the mound in the world, and said, look, I knew this was going to happen, but knowing how deGrom's been, I'm expecting he's trying to pull back, get really, really healthy, really, really strong, and come back where it won't happen again.
So 32-year-old Marcell Ozuna is currently playing under a 6-year, $36 million contract for the Braves, and decides he's going to stop and admire a baseball that goes 415 feet. It needed to go 416 feet to be a home run, and it's a single. And Brian Snitker, while I applaud him for taking him out of the game eventually, waited an inning and a half to do so, but then acknowledged that he was pulled for lack of effort. What do you think about this move? What do you think about Ozuna right now? And, Michael, how many managers across Major League Baseball would pull a player at all for that lack of effort?
If it made them look good, a lot of them. But if you wait too long, it's over. And Ozuna's got to know his pop. I mean, he's a better hitter than I ever was, but the reality of it is, get out of the box. You're there as a team player. You're not a golfer. You're not a guy playing for yourself. You're not, like you said, a contractor. You are a guy that's under contract, being paid by a team, and you're a veteran. Step up. You've already made enough, of a fuss in the media in the wrong way. You're trying to get your name back, trying to make sure everything goes right. Don't make them continue to have to give you grace. But I do love that they took him out of the game. I don't know why you wait. I mean, he should have been on third base. The only person that should have been on first base is someone that was literally crawling to get to the finish line. I don't know if you guys saw just the other day, Odor hit a ball down the line, and I think he tore his hamstring and waddled to second base for a double. That's how you play. That's how you are remembered as a great teammate, and I played with him, and he was a great teammate.
So a college baseball question for you. You've got the situation at Southern Miss where Tanner Hall, great pitcher, a great prospect also, is going to be drafted high in the draft coming up. He throws 123 pitches on Friday night in an NCAA tournament game. Normally he's the Friday pitcher for Southern Miss, waits a week and starts again. But because their season's on the line on Monday, he starts and pitches another 127 pitches on Monday. It's something he's done once before, I know. And the player definitely knows his own arm, but this was met with a lot of criticism, Michael. What do you think about the ethics of that? If you're a college baseball coach, putting your pitcher that's got a future making a lot of money as a pitcher in Major League Baseball, putting him in that spot.
You said it best. It's his arm. It's his career. He's already got an advisor, and they're going to try to make the best decisions. That kid wants to win. It makes me want to draft him more. The fact that he wants to get out there and try to win. And here, I'm going to make you guys think about something because I hate pitch counts. They should be using the biomechanics they have. They can see the lag. They can see all the things and elements. I won't get into all of it, but here's the thing. Think about college pitchers, okay? Think about how much you hear these top prospects, these top arms being torn down, broken down because of pitch counts. Now do the same in pro ball. Who's winning that war? It's college. There's no doubt in my mind. They throw more. They never stop throwing. They're not put in a cage. Now think about a zoo. Have you ever seen a lion in the zoo? They don't look healthy because they've been caged up. They've been locked up. They're not allowed to be who they normally are. Now let them free. You're terrified that they're going to eat your face off. So I want a bunch of lions that are free. Let them make that statement like, I can't go any further. Or you can see that the ball doesn't have the flight. The spin's not there. There's lag. Or the next day they pull their scap forward because they put too much pressure. There's telltale signs through and through, and there's so much technology. It's like we just want to always have control over it, but that's never worked in society. That's never worked in sports, and it's not going to work now. We have more technology than ever before. There's more arm surgeries and more injuries in all sports than ever before. Make it make sense.
Michael McHenry with us on Hot Mike with Hutton and Withrow across the OutKick network. Michael Soroka optioned down to the minors after 2 starts in his comeback bid from 2 Achilles injuries. And it was a disaster. And the quote after the most recent outing was, "That's just not me." Michael, I'm curious from your experience, just battling injuries, playing in the minors, getting the call up, playing back in the minors. What is this like mentally for a player? How difficult is it to overcome not just the injury, but the idea that you just don't feel the way you did prior to them?
I think the biggest thing is the belief the people around you have. You believe you can get through it. Obviously, the product in the field is going to always tell you exactly where you're at. And he's going to actually be a better pitcher in the long run if people say, hey, man, go down there, do your thing, get it right. You're a part of this plan. And I think Atlanta's shown the way that they've locked these guys up over the last 3 or 4 years, that they've put together a great culture. So they're saying, hey, go down there. We're winning. We're in first place. You have nothing to worry about. Go down there. Be ready to go when your number's called and be the guy you can be now, not the guy you were then. And the fact he's so young, that's a big thing. And I go back to Charlie Morton and Daniel Bard. When people believed in those two human beings, they didn't understand anything else but go out and dominate. And that's what's going to happen with this kid. He's got that type of people and culture around him that are going to say, hey, we believe in you. We've continued to push forward with you, but this is the plan we have now. And I'd wonder if he didn't say something himself, like, hey, I'm not ready. I'm hurting this team. Let me go. Because the story's great. It's probably going to bring butts to the seats, but the reality of it is when you want to win, you want to win.
Michael McHenry has been our guest talking Major League Baseball. Final thing for you. What's the best story right now or backstory with the team that's not getting enough attention, not being talked about enough?
I don't know why everybody's not jumped on Judge right now. He is on fire last I looked. Absolutely on fire. In the bottom half of the salary totals. Look at the power rankings that just came out. It'll mind boggle you. You're talking about Pittsburgh, Baltimore, Tampa, Miami, Arizona. The highest salary is Arizona, 115. Remarkable. That just shows baseball is a sport that if you have a good team, a good culture, and a good staff of development, you can win.
Michael, always great to have you on, man. Glad everything is as good as it could be following the car wreck earlier. And thank you again for joining us despite having no reason to based on the circumstances.
You are no Marcelo Zuna. You always play through it. You always hustle. We appreciate that.
You run through the bag.
That's right, every time.
I appreciate it, and I may start maybe derby carring or something. So stay tuned. May start a new profession. I'll fill you in.
We'll join you. See you, man. Michael McHenry.
And I was inspired by inspired in reverse, I guess you would say, with the Marcelo Zuna lack of hustle.
Go ahead.
And I decided with our 8U travel softball team.
Go ahead.
Had a couple girls not run all the way through the base. Want to do the whole slow up thing where they kind of hop to first and
Travel
stop
league,
there.
So I understand the discipline.
And getting the out. Well, even in rec ball, I was big on. I'd always ask the girls. I said, "What is the one thing that will get Coach Chad to nearly have a stroke during a game?" All the parents know, all the players know, and some not running through first base. They'll yell it out every time. So I rallied the girls up and I said, 2 words will define this team. 2 words only. We run. So we're going to do 1, 2, 3. We run. Every time we gather, we run. What 2 words define our team? I'll say in between innings. And they'll all chant together, we run. That is in everything. We run to the ball in the field. We run to the bases hard. We
run up the scoreboard.
That is my message to Marcelo Zuna, Hutton. I've got the same. Well, yeah, we got other teams run the scoreboard on us more than that. But my message to Marcelo Zuna is my same message to my 8U softball team. Run. We run. Don't sit there and watch it. Drives me crazy.
NFL players need to run away from the apps that are on their phone for sports betting. John McClain will join us when we come back. It is the topic right now across the NFL as mini camps begin this week and continue next week for other teams. There's another player, a Colts receiver, a corner, that's getting popped for betting on not just football, betting on the NFL and on the Indianapolis Colts. We'll get John's perspective on this because, on one hand, I think the perception is the NFL has a player betting problem. But if you really think about the number of players in the league compared to the handful that we know about, is there a problem? And does the NFL actually, are they transparent enough with the punishment that's coming down? We'll get John's take and much more from the headlines across the NFL next on Hot Mic.
So Jake Bird is a reliever for one of the worst teams in baseball, the Colorado Rockies, who are just horrible. And apparently this middle reliever who was called up for called up to the big leagues for the first time this year. So he's toiled and worked his butt off. decided he was going to pull a little old school, going to date myself, Al Hrabosky, and challenge and act like an idiot on the mound because he got an out. He did that against the Phillies. And in doing so, Bryce Harper took exception and went basically to the Rockies bench and said, let's fight. And I love it. I think it's awesome. I love, I don't know. I just love stuff because in baseball, there's a lot of fake tough guys. There's a lot of fake tough guys who talk the game, and then there's the tough guys are actually the guys that don't talk tough for the most part, like Pedro Martinez or Nolan Ryan. Nolan Ryan never said anything. He just threw 107 and put it in your ribcage if he didn't like you. Pedro would knock you on your ass at the drop of a dime. But I love that. I love guys like that. I love guys that are real and authentic. And Bryce is clearly a leader. And I since the day I met him I think I met him when he was like 12. It seems like his first year in the big leagues. He's always been a guy who's been vocal, but he plays the game and he's good. And the other stuff is the chromey stuff that's the modern day game and what they love and all the things that go with that. But the guy plays as hard as he can. And I think he gives it everything. And I loved it. I thought it was a great thing. I thought it was a good thing for the Phillies who need a little kick in the ass. And then there was he got ejected. Bird got ejected. Rockies won the game 4-0 to avoid a sweep. But none of that stuff matters. That's kind of the thing that you, I don't know about rally around, but it just cements a guy's position in the clubhouse. Zach Greinke became just the 5th player in Major League history. And please understand the significance of that. There have been, 100 and probably 40 years of organized professional baseball. When somebody does something that only 4 players have ever done, unique is not really the right word. I don't even know what it is. It's excruciatingly rare. But Greinke struck out his 1,000th different career player. So he struck out, only 5 guys have done this. In the list pretty much makes you understand. Randy Johnson, Roger Clemens, Greg Maddux, and Nolan Ryan are the only other players ever to strike out 1,000 different hitters. Not 1,000 hitters, 1,000 different hitters.
And the only guy on that list that he's similar to is Maddux.
Right. Well, and if you know anything about Zach, he's been Maddux-like since he got to the big leagues.
Right.
And he talked about, I think, his approach. Fascinating story too, by the way. And as a father of someone who raised a kid with Asperger's, meeting a professional athlete with Asperger's it's exactly what you expect. The guy is laser focused beyond belief. And as a parent of an Aspie, I met him. Well, I don't know if met him's the right word, but I ran into him at an event in Arizona, and he was exactly what you'd expect. But a phenomenal career. I think probably a Hall of Fame career too.
Glad you're with us. 6th and Peabody, our location, with Yeehaw Beer and Old Smoky Moonshine. Hutton Withrow, hot mic across the OutKick Network, and we welcome in John McClain of long time. He's covered the NFL for nearly 5 decades.
He's a Hall of Famer.
But we lead off today, John, with the biggest news in the sports world. The PGA Tour merging with the LIV Tour. Were you as shocked as we were this morning?
I was in total shock when I'd been at the Texans practice this morning. I rushed to my regular Tuesday show on the radio when I got there, and they thought I knew about it, and I didn't. And they told me, and I'm like, wow. And the first thing I thought about is like Rory McIlroy was the most outspoken critic, and his game has suffered. A lot of people think it's because he devoted so much time to being the leader of the anti-LIV tour. But what I really feel bad for is all the guys like Dustin Johnson and Brooks Koepka and all those guys that took $100 million, and all the guys that did not out of loyalty, like Rory McIlroy and Justin Thomas and Scheffler and all those great golfers. They look foolish now. As part of the deal, the Saudis going to give all of them $100 million to be fair, because I would be incredibly bitter if I was them. Like Tiger, what Tiger turned down? $500 million? Now, okay, yeah, he's loaded, but still, if he turned it down and others accepted it, like Phil Mickelson, then where is the fairness in that? They should have just caved and taken that blood money originally. But the fact is, Saudis got billions and billions and billions, and I hope that the price of playing golf on the PGA Tour now, instead of a last place finisher getting 100 grand, might get $1 million, because those purses need to go way up. I don't like the idea of team golf. I don't like the idea of music blaring on mediocre courses. So I'm hoping when all is said and done, and we find out all the details of the PGA selling out, that it will help the members, therefore give more money for charities, because a big portion of every PGA tournament goes to charity. And say a charity gets $10 million a year from, say, the Phoenix Open. Now that they're going to get $20 million a year from the Phoenix Open, I hope that's the case.
So, John, now the governor of Saudi Arabia's sovereign wealth fund is the chairman of the board of the entire PGA Tour. Jay Monahan is the CEO over him, but Jay Monahan's not going to survive this, right? This is going to be a resignation after this deal goes through. He has zero integrity at this point. He's already talking about, I understand the criticism, but 10 years from now, you'll see this was the right thing. That screams to me of a guy who's about to resign once the paperwork is filed.
Well, the guy is the chairman from Saudi Arabia. He cannot be running an American, the tournament. The tour. I'm guessing he's name only, look good for his country, but if it's not going to be Monahan, it's going to have to be somebody else come in there and oversee everything. Jay Monahan is one of the primary negotiators. I can't wait to see what a lot of the golfers think who were not consulted on it, and they found out when everybody else found out. And guys like Dustin Johnson and Brooks Koepka, those guys got to be going, because they were able to play in the majors. Now they'll be able to play in other tournaments, and maybe there won't be as much animosity. Maybe there'll be more, but they have to take care of the golfers who turned down $100 million because they didn't want the blood money and they wanted to be loyal to the PGA Tour. They have to take care of them financially.
So, John, we've seen Saudi Arabia now disrupt a sport and force a merger where they now have a seat at the table. Do you feel like this is just the start, and now that they've had a successful trial run on this, the next step is to completely take over an American sport or a global sport just by simply outspending the competition?
I'm guessing that's not going to happen. I've never read anything that was their goal. And maybe it is. Maybe it'll be Saudi domination, but it's PGA Tour is for America. It's not, of course, people from all over the world play on the tour, but we think of it as being American Tour because they play here And I think it's too bad in the next Ryder Cup they couldn't let the LIV Tour guys play against everybody else that turned down that money. But I don't know if Monahan's going to be out or if he's negotiated himself a cushy exit fee in which he'll be taken care of for life, or if he's going to stay around X number of years. But whoever replaces him as the head of the PGA, right under the chairman, it's going to have to be somebody who's good. It's going to have to be somebody that's got a real strong personality and doesn't let people push him around. But I'm waiting to see what the golfers think about this, and I'm pretty sure there's going to be a lot of them that are very bitter.
John McClain with us on Hot Mic with Hutton and Withrow across the OutKick network. John, does the NFL have a player gambling problem, or is that just the perception based on the headline that continues to be one of the headlines each and every week, where sports apps are reporting certain activity from players that will result in a suspension? Where do you come down on the number of players? It's really just a handful compared to the players that are in the league. Or do you think we're only seeing a very small portion of it based on what's going on behind the scenes?
Well, first of all, you got to be a moron to get caught because there's a way to circumvent it, and a lot of guys are doing it. But the NFL makes it clear. Teams make it clear. Everybody that violates the rules knows they're violating the rules, and they deserve whatever penalty they get. Jameson Williams, the Lions, acted like he didn't know about the rules. Well, of course they do. The team tells them over and over and over. Their agents tell them. Their publicists tell them. And everybody tells them what the rules are. So if it's been like 6 or 7 people, beginning with Calvin Ridley, and you talk about all the players who come through the NFL the last 2 years, that isn't even a handful. That's not making a pimple on an elephant's butt. But you got to be naive to think a lot of guys aren't gambling and getting away with it. And if they ever find somebody who bet on his team to lose, that is the worst thing that could possibly happen to the NFL.
Well, and John, I think there needs to be some common sense differentiation between the sports that's being gambled on, right? What Jameson Williams did, while dumb, I mean, if you're betting on a UFC event on a team bus, let's say on a road trip, and not the NFL, I don't know that that's worthy of a 6-game suspension. Now, if Rodgers with the Colts is betting on the NFL and his own team and the Colts, that's a problem,
yes,
right? That's a much bigger problem, and I hope the league sees a difference between those.
But if you're Jameson Williams and you've been told not to do it and you know not to do it, don't do it. Why can't you wait? Why do you have to do it? You're breaking the rules. You know you're breaking the rules. Don't be a dumbass.
Well, on the same token, John, I think the league took betting money, gambling money, before they actually had a policy thought out.
There's so many billions to be made. And one reason they're playing so in Germany and more games in Europe, it's not just to spread the brand, it's because they've been betting longer and on more things than we have. They're much more sophisticated about it overall. And so they want to get that gambling money, not just in Europe, but all over the world. And it could reap, I've heard talk of $100 billion for the NFL over the next 5 years. And we make jokes about the NFL, needing all the money they could get. This price tag of $6.05 million for the Commanders, 5 years from now, it might be going for $20 billion. People look back and go, man, oh man, what a great deal Josh Harris Group got. And it's going to be because of gambling and streaming rights.
You mentioned the billions, and I'm thinking about the new stadiums that are going up or will be built. They're breaking ground in Buffalo. Meanwhile, what's going on in Chicago? I thought they had purchased land that they're going to build a stadium on, and all of a sudden that deal has fallen through.
Yeah, just like what's going on in Vegas with the A's and their land. You don't just snap your fingers and get it done. It seems to me like everything I've been trying to keep up with, the Titans and the government there have done the smoothest job, the one that is not involving animosity. And I see the money, this stadium is going to be built for $1.5 billion. Do you possibly believe that by the time this thing is done? in 2026 or whenever the Bills are going to be in there. No telling how much it would cost. Remember when they started off talking about the new stadium for the Rams and the Chargers going to be about $2 billion, end up being $5.
Yeah.
So whatever the price is now, by the time it's done, it will skyrocket. It'll take longer than people are thinking. But boy, once it opens and everybody's got a new stadium and a Taj Mahal, everybody will love it.
John, DeAndre Hopkins is going to end up where? He's officially a free agent now.
Well, I can tell you where he's not coming. He's not coming to the Houston Texans, being leaked by a lot of people. One report here said he'd met with the Texans. Not true. He has no interest. They have no interest. He's not met with them. He wants to go where there's a lot of money and where he got a chance to go to the Super Bowl. And I'm told he wants $10 million a year. Not many teams have that. The Browns cleared up a lot of cap money last week. They could afford him, but they have their 2 starters back. They drafted Cedric Tillman. They traded for Moore, the receiver, I think, from the Jets. And then they signed free agent Marquise Goodman. And so they have 5. And Hopkins hadn't had a good year in 2 years. He's missed 15 games because of injuries and suspension. So he's not going to get the kind of money he wants. And then Deshaun Watson's campaigning like crazy to try to get him there. So I'm going to say that's where he's going to end up, because it doesn't look like the other ones. They have the money, kind of money he's talking to. He's made a lot of money. He's not married. He could call up Andy Reid and say, Coach, I want a chance to go to the Super Bowl every year. How about I sign a 2-year deal for this, and you tell me what you'll pay me, and I'll take it, as long as it's not just the minimum, and they have a chance to win the Super Bowl both years.
John, it's a cool story if Damar Hamlin ends up on the cover, but just how low would you rank who is going to be on the cover of Madden in terms of off-season storylines for media to cover?
Boy, I don't even know who the candidates are, but if you wanted the person to put on the cover that has created the most headlines and the most news on talk shows and online, it'd be Aaron Rodgers, and put him on the cover. I don't know who the candidates are. Hamlin, if he's the one, that'd be great, because it just gets so much attention. But nobody has got more attention going back to the last offseason, over the last year, than Aaron Rodgers. Because he's playing with the Jets, we're going to have to hear about him every day. I wish he'd go back into the darkness and never come out.
Hey, but we were doing that in Green Bay, though. We were hearing about Aaron Rodgers every day, or at least once a week when he went on McAfee. So, I mean, regardless of where he was, we were creating storylines based on what he would say.
And no matter where McAfee goes, Aaron Rodgers will follow.
Yeah. And make tons of headlines. The storylines across the league this time of year, John, how much thought or energy do you give some of the headlines you see in the month of June for what takes place in the fall?
Nothing. The only thing I pay attention to are injuries. Like when I watch C.J. Stroud at practice, and then I go on my radio station, I know they don't want me to say, I've never seen anything happen in OTA that had anything to do with the regular season unless somebody was injured. Never heard one guy in 47 years covering the NFL say, man, in December, if I'd have just done better in OTA, if I'd just paid a little more attention, or the reason I won all these awards is the way I started in OTAs. Nobody mentions OTAs. I was listening to these great reports about Anthony Richardson and all the good things he's doing. Well, if the quarterback's not doing well when he's not being rushed and the receiver's not being covered, something ought to be wrong. Something's wrong. So I should do all my shows. I should go on. If you ask me about C.J. Stroud, I'm like, man, C.J. Stroud's hitting every pass. He's got great touch. He's accurate. He's moving well. He's throwing right, throwing left. He's been fantastic, but that wouldn't be true.
John, I know a trade almost came together between the Dolphins and the Vikings for Dalvin Cook back in March. Didn't come together. But I'll ask you the same DeAndre Hopkins, hypothetical. If Dalvin Cook is cut by the Vikings, which we expect, Dolphins and who else makes sense as a team and an offense that could use Dalvin Cook, who's still a very good player?
It would have to be a good team that has a chance to go to the playoffs like Miami. and that would be the perfect landing spot. I still can't believe they're going to get rid of him over money. They could do something to the contract, push some money forward. He started 17 games last season. He's a terrific receiver, but they're using analytics to show how his performance has declined. Well, sometime you got to look beyond analytics, but boy, if he's out there, he's going to have teams interested, but he's going to have the same problem DeAndre Hopkins. A lot of teams just don't have much money. New England, a team that has a lot of money, people are saying, well, Hopkins could end up there. And I'm like, he and Bill O'Brien hate each other, hate each other. All of a sudden, are they going to play kissy face and make up and forget about everything that happened here when he was traded after the 2019 season? I'm not sure what Miami has available, but he would be a natural fit there. And you put him in that lineup with those great receivers, they might have the most prolific offense in the NFL until Tua gets hurt.
John McClain, the Pro Football Hall of Fame selector and the Pro Football Hall of Famer. John, thank you as always. We always enjoy these chats, and there's never-ending news when it comes to the NFL.
Jonathan and Chadlack, there's never a dull moment. Thank you guys very much, and have a great rest of the day.
Same to you. Thank you, John. John McClain there. He's echoing what we said about PGA and LIV Tour. But just circling back briefly to what he's saying on the gambling issue across the NFL, where Isaiah Rodgers Sr., he's already admitted that it was him on social media.
I thought was a very I thought he was very forthcoming in his apology. Like in terms of legitimate apologies, I thought his social media apology felt like he was truly sorry for what had gone on.
Well, so I'm conflicted with this, Chad, because on one hand, it's on the player to know whatever the rule is or what you can and cannot do. On the other hand, I do get the feeling and the vibe from players I've talked to that the NFL, and by the way, not just players, just people around the league, in the league, the NFL jumped in with the huge pot of money that came with all the FanDuel, DraftKings, BetMGM, others, the official betting partner of the NFL, or they allowed individual organizations to structure their own contracts with local groups. I think they did that before they actually had any policy in place, and then just kind of rolled it out. And they used Calvin Ridley as the example, the poster child of what not to do, but really didn't explain the difference between here and there, and you can do this on your own time, but you can't do it here. Don't use the Wi-Fi from the facility if you're sitting in your car. Stupid, just the minutia of this, I think, is where I'm confused on what the players know and what they don't. I think it should be hard and fast, where you don't bet on the league, period. If you're betting on your team, don't care. Even if you're betting on the money line for your team to win, don't care. Don't bet on the league. Anything else is wide open and legal in 21 states right now on your phone. I don't understand why, if you're not in one of those states, if you land in one on a road trip and you're on the way to a team hotel and you want to put some money down on a college football game or whatever else is going on that Saturday night. Chad, you referenced UFC. To me, that's a big difference in what is an indefinite suspension to a 6-game suspension, which is the same amount of time that DeAndre Hopkins received for performance-enhancing drugs last year. To me, those things are not equal. And on one hand, the league is taking a boatload of cash, and on the other hand, there are players that are not paying attention to the fine print that's really costing them in their bank account. According to Rodgers, he's making $25 and $50 bets, and he's losing out on a full season worth, at least, of his contract. That is a huge difference, and it's on him. I mean, it's not like, I didn't know what I was ingesting. Something must have been, something was in the vat before they made the over-the-counter medication I was taking. That's the excuse for the PEDs. Still on you. You still pop for it. He got caught here, and there are watchdogs everywhere looking for this. One of two things is going to happen. They're going to get back to the table and actually discuss what's fair and what's not, or they're going to have a lot more of these cases. And if there is confusion, Chad, there's got to be more of this behind the scenes that's not being caught And that's where the real issue is. It's either you don't think it's a big deal because only 10 or so players have been caught for this, or they've only caught 10 of the plethora of people that are doing it, by the way, legally, just not within the structure of the CBA.
It's an NCAA-esque level of commitment to minutia with the rules and a lack of understanding of common sense. That's what I see with it, Hutton. When you're going to punish someone a 6-game suspension, the Jamison Williams example is the one I use. For being on a team bus and betting on a college football game or a UFC game, it's ridiculous that is the punishment. That to me should be a stern warning at that point. I agree with the hard and fast rule about not betting on the NFL, but you can bet on anything else any other citizen of America could bet on their phone, on their betting app. I also was really struck by Logan Ryan and his answer when he was in studio with us. And I forget who asked. It was either you or I about the policy and how well they know about it.
Mm-hmm.
And he kind of flippantly said, yeah, I mean, they send emails about that stuff like they do, any corporation, any business would send an email. And I'm thinking, if that isn't an email from NFL Players Association or the league and someone doesn't open it and you get popped because you bet on a UFC fight on a bus, that seems a little extreme to me.
But also the agents have to get involved here too, because their clients are losing out on a $25 or $50 bet. And by the way, according to the reports, you've got him where he's betting, 100 different bets.
Yeah.
And a vast
involving the NFL.
And a vast number of them were for his own team with the Colts.
He also used an associate.
Yeah, yes. All that's problematic. But not every single issue is exactly the same. And I think there is some confusion there. The agents have to get their guys under this umbrella of knowing what they can and can't do. And ultimately, I mean, let's face it, based on what the majority of the league makes compared to what the season salary represents for them, not everybody's getting the Joe Burrow-like contract extension. They're clawing their way. They're making good money, but they're clawing their way on the back end of a roster, hoping that they're not sent down to the practice squad after the game day wraps up on Sunday afternoon. It's much more punitive to the player than it is the league and the optics of it, personally. That's why they've got to get under the radar of, here is the punishment. There are no ifs, ands, or buts about it. There's no confusion. This is what it is. And the agents, they have to protect their guys. I would mandate that they know what they can and can't do. And maybe they do, and they're acting like they don't. But either way, the NFL is trying to save face because for decades they said, we're not doing anything involving Vegas. If you worked for an NFL organization, you cannot step foot in a casino. You're scared to lose your gig based on that. And now those same sports books are pouring cash, not just into the league, but the same organizations that don't allow certain members of the organization or any to step foot in a casino, even in the offseason. That's ludicrous.
If I'm an agent, I know I'm talking about infringing on personal rights and liberties or whatever, but if it's my client, I just wouldn't even mess around with it because of what's at stake. Don't even allow it.
Yeah.
Have a block on the phone that would not allow any sports betting app on your client's phone, as long as they're an NFL player. And then we'll just eliminate any chance that you make a mistake that could cost you millions of dollars.
Chad, coming up, I've been combing through social media on mainly Twitter, getting certain tweets and responses from what's taking place with the players meeting with Jay Monahan. Here's one. Reports are that Tiger Woods found out about this morning, had no idea that this was coming down. There's plenty more reaction to that and what Monahan's saying and what he has said last year compared to now, and the optics of using victims of 9/11 and pointing to the integrity of the PGA compared to the Saudi-backed LIV Tour and what has happened earlier today with the merger of the two tours. We've got reaction to that and much more straight ahead here on Hot Mic.
primary complaint is when you let somebody cross the street while you're driving and they purposely take their time when they see that they are waiting for you crossing the street. That is my primary complaint, and it drives me crazy.
My primary complaint is people who talk on speakerphone in public.
People that chew too loud.
Number 1 pet peeve, telemarketers. Number 2 pet peeve, when people don't understand the menu that they're serving. Number 3 pet peeve, when people ask for change but they have no quarters. Number 4 pet peeve, parallel parking.
My primary complaint is I can't just go to a bar and have a nice quiet beer. There's all this live music every freaking where. Like, I'm just trying to go to a bar, relax, have a beer, watch the game, but no, we gotta have these guitar players and these bands. Why can't I just hang out and just relax, have a beer, and watch the Memphis Grizzlies? I mean, is that too much to ask?
I do not appreciate or condone anybody that litters. I think you gotta keep your planet clean. It's turning your nose up to everybody that has to clean your up with littering.
My primary complaint would be wobbly tables at restaurants.
Another pet peeve I have is no courtesy flushing. No one believes in that. I believe in it. Thank you. Another pet peeve I have is when people have AirPods in. Excuse me. Another pet peeve I have is when people have AirPods in and they're singing louder so everyone can hear what they're not supposed to listen to.
When people eat smelly food on the airplane.
Dishes left in the sink.
My primary complaint is when I'm out to eat with somebody and they bite their fork as they are putting the fork in their mouth to eat.
When people bite their fork and scrape that, and when they're eating dinner, you can hear like it's like nails on a chalkboard. Hell no.
My primary complaint is when people complain about me when I bite my fork.
Those folks who are in the airport talking on their cell phone very loud so everybody else can hear what they're saying even though we really don't care.
My primary complaint are drivers who do not stop on a pedestrian crosswalk. Period.
My last pet peeve is that when people text you, they text you that they're busy, or if you call them, they answer and say they can't talk. Either way, just don't respond. You can't text me, don't text me back. And if you can't answer the phone, don't answer the phone to tell me you can't talk.
Glad you're with us across the OutKick Network for Hot Mike with Hutton and Withrow, live at 6th and Peabody with Yeehaw Beer and Old Smoky Moonshine. It wrapped up the cornhole tournament, the celebrity cornhole tournament here with the CMA Fest and everything that Craig Campbell is doing to raise awareness and, more importantly, funds for the research to help find a cure for colon cancer. It's the third leading cause of cancer-related deaths for both men and women across the United States. We've been reacting to a lot of coverage and opinion and statements and optics from the PGA Tour as they merge today with the LIV Tour. We'll get back into that coming up in the final hour. Chad, across the sports landscape, though, we've got, Game 3 coming up tomorrow night. Nice little wait as we wait on the NBA Finals. And in regards to the NBA, right now, once the finals are done, the biggest news that we will know is in regards to Ja Morant. I know I was out last Friday, but you mentioned you thought, in your opinion, they're going to lay down the hammer to him.
Well, I think Adam Silver, not just on that, Adam Silver's comments about we have uncovered new information and it would be unfair to release that information now, so we're going to wait until after these teams are playing.
Yeah.
That does not sound like good news for Ja Morant. That did not sound like we have learned some exonerating information about Ja Morant and his suspension is going to be less. Hutton, I took that as there's other things we found out in our investigation that are not good for Ja Morant, and we're going to deal with that after. We don't want to take away the spotlight and the shine from our NBA Finals to talk about something negative like Ja Morant. That's the way I took it. Maybe I'm wrong, but none of this sounds good for Morant.
Well, I think, too, like I mentioned this last week as the finals got started, they also have to weigh, no matter what the suspension is, for how long, whatever, the debate is going to be whether or not it was fair and just based on the situation for Ja Morant. And the question I would have if I'm Silver, if I'm just with the league or with the teams or period, do you want that conversation to be a part of the overall coverage of your NBA Finals? Because it would. Instead of talking about how you go about stopping the best player right now in the world with Jokic, it's turned to get Barkley and Shaq's opinion on whether or not they agree with the suspension for whatever it ends up being for Ja. That the conversation does turn a bit, and if you would have players asked about it at the podium, it would be not a distraction. It's just a different course of conversation that I don't think they want a part of what they're doing. Because
I get the thinking behind it.
To their credit, these playoffs have been very good. They've taken the political BS out of it on both sides, and it's been about the sport. Imagine that. And that's what they're sticking to, at least to this point.
It's been about the basketball, and all the drama has been player, coach generated. It has not been social justice generated. Right. And it's led to a better product in the NBA. And I understand the line of thinking that this is our premier series. We're going to make it about the basketball in the finals here.
Yeah.
And they do get that extra kick of publicity where every show like ours is going to talk about the Ja Morant ruling after the NBA Finals.
That's also fair.
So you wait until a week later, and then suddenly, oh, wow. In a time where it's all Major League Baseball and gearing up for the NFL, suddenly we've got an NBA news cycle of 2 or 3 days where everyone's reacting to us laying the hammer down on the biggest young star in the game. So I think there's some benefit to that for the NBA to wait and create more news in a cycle where normally you wouldn't have any NBA news.
Chad, they did get a Zoom link up for players not attending the Canadian Open.
Oh, good job.
To speak with Monahan.
Jay Monahan finally learned how to work Zoom. Only 3 years removed from COVID-19 when everything was done on Zoom. This guy just now figured out, oh, here's where I click to join the meeting room.
Yeah,
now I can have Rory McIlroy hop on and give his 2 cents about this merger.
There's a press conference that's scheduled for 5 minutes from now with the media with Jay Monahan. It doesn't sound like it's going to start on time. I know that because I'm following PGA Tour's pros right now. I've asked them to speak. They're speaking directly from the room, reacting to Jay Monahan. We have our reaction to that next.
What you're experiencing is the bold taste of a Southern legend. Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey, authentic Tennessee mountain-style spirits. We believe in crafting flavors that were born from tradition but defy expectation, and pioneering a new experience with every sip. Because if it doesn't do this, it ain't this. Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey. Come on.
Welcome into OutKick the show. I am Clay Travis, your fearless leader. I am going to continue to argue that sports is one of the great unifying forces in all of American life. ESPN is a sinking ship. Democrats are now the party of the white, woke college graduate.
We live in the land of participation trophies.
You gotta lean into the turns. You really gotta lean into the turns.
When Leah Thomas walked in that first day, it got silent, and every girl was uncomfortable.
Very difficult to go back-to-back years in the NFL with the number 1 overall pick.
I've been out of LA long enough to have forgotten that libs, no matter how ridiculous the scenario, are gonna lib. Another week of inflation, another week with Biden with COVID, and another set of losers to crown. People don't watch the WNBA on TV, in person, on a plane, on a train, on a bus, or on purpose.
The scary thing, Tommy, is in the history of this government, I've never seen them give anything back that they've taken.
Oh no, they never do.
And they won't.
We've seen coaches throw water bottles. We've seen coaches act like idiots. We've seen coaches slap other coaches. But I think if you're involved in carjacking, you're inherently a rotten human being. The level of stupid that sometimes gets on our YouTube chat just gives me a headache. You're born a male, play with males. You're born a female, play with females. Don't at me about it, people.
I believe this person is the greatest player anybody alive will ever see. How can you hate Derek Jeter? A guy's on-base percentage tells me his batting eye, and a guy's slugging percentage tells me if he's a threat. That's the kind of guy that throws a no-hitter, that effectively wild guy.
Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey, a bold taste of a Southern legend.
We are live and reacting to the biggest headline of the day. It is the PGA Tour merging with the LIV Tour, merging with Saudi and the Public Investment Fund, the wealth fund of Saudi. A lot to discuss. We're glad you're with us across the OutKick network, which includes YouTube. You can search us out there. Hope you subscribe, give us a thumbs up, join us in the chat. A lot to discuss over the next hour, final hour here on the Tuesday edition as we broadcast live from 6th and Peabody with Yeehaw Beer and Old Smoky Moonshine. They've packed up the cornhole tournament, the celebrity cornhole tournament for the CMA Fest here, and many artists will be taking the stage, including Craig Campbell and others, about an hour from now here in downtown.
And they didn't just pack up the cornhole boards, they auctioned them off.
Oh, did they?
They were autographed by the celebrities participating, and they packaged them up, handed them to someone to put in their truck, and they went home with it, and they sold that for money for colon cancer research. So all to a great cause. Thrilled to be here at this event today. A lot of fun. We've had a good time.
Yes, not having a good time today is Jay Monahan, who is wrapping up the PGA players meeting. Many of the players, I would bet, vast majority, if not all, found out the same way Tiger Woods did, which was this morning, through a memo or through Twitter, where we talked with some PGA Tour professionals. They're playing the Canadian Open. They're on a practice round, and they're finding out on social media, not from the PGA Tour, that the Tour has merged with the LIV Tour. A year ago this month, all of the discussion was about how Phil Mickelson and others were turning their back on the American Tour, the PGA Tour. That was just, that was about moral value and quality and honesty, integrity, loyalty. And a year later, Jay Monahan announces in a joint presser, availability with CNBC, that he's merged, PGA Tour is merged with the LIV Tour. We're going to get into all the details here, but let's rewind a year. Here's Jay Monahan basically using 9/11, shaming players who were considering taking the money and joining LIV in 2022.
I talked to players. I've talked at a player meeting, and I've talked to a number of players individually for a long period of time. I think you'd have to be living under a rock to not know that there are significant implications. As it relates to the families of 9/11, I have two families that are close to me that lost loved ones, and so my heart goes out to them. And I would ask, any player that has left or any player that would ever consider leaving, have you ever had to apologize for being a member of the PGA Tour?
Chad, that's the quote you brought up earlier, and there it is from Jay Monahan a year ago. Now he's saying they're merging to grow the game of golf, to unify the game of golf. They're no longer, moral and bitter enemies. This is now a partnership and a friendship.
It's a financial decision because they didn't want to pay in an antitrust lawsuit. They didn't want to lose all of their control. So they're willing to give up a lot of control to, let's face it, to what Jay Monahan just said, the devil, evil. That's what he compared Saudi Arabia to and what LIV Tour represents. Good versus evil. PGA good, LIV Tour evil. If you took evil's money, you are evil, and you will answer questions for the rest of your life about being evil. My question to Jay Monahan is, how do you sleep at night, sir, after agreeing as the CEO and the commissioner of the PGA Tour that, hey, I'm fine taking this blood money. I'm fine taking these conspirators of 9/11's money, which, by the way, Saudi nationals versus Saudi government pulling off that awful, awful thing, two different things. We can get into the history lesson of that at some point. But what he was comparing Saudi Arabia to and LIV Tour to, make no mistakes about it in that audio, these people orchestrated 9/11. That is what that represents. And as someone who has family members, friends that were victims of that, how are you going to sleep at night? How are you going to answer questions and apologize for that if you leave the PGA Tour? Jay Monahan is a man that will worship the altar in front of him. He will fly the flag that is paying him in that moment. He's not unlike most of corporate America. He's not unlike most men in this world. Doesn't make him worse, doesn't make him better. But my problem with people like Jay Monahan or anyone else is when you pretend to be better than everyone else and you lecture those that decided to make a financial decision for their families and take the bag, and you're telling them they're evil and they're going to have to answer questions for that, and you'll never answer a question about PGA Tour. Well, I'll ask this to you, Jay Monahan. All those guys who stayed, Rory McIlroy, Jordan Spieth, are they going to have to answer questions now? Because they are full-fledged partners with the evil empire you described in that audio. What questions are they going to answer? Will they sleep a solid 8 to 9 hours every night? Or are they going to have issues with that? Stop with the hypocrisy. End it now. Understand that you have failed miserably. You are falling on the sword when you even say, I understand there's going to be criticism in the short term, but let's look 10 years out. It's the short term that matters. Why? Because in the short term, you made a summary judgment on LIV Tour, and you said a lot of things to try to help your side. And you lost. Own it, resign, which will happen sooner rather than later, and walk away a loser. Probably a very rich loser. Most of us would love to be the rich loser that Jay Monahan will be, but you're the loser in this. I'll tell you who the winners are. Dustin Johnson, Phil Mickelson. My God, Greg Norman right now is probably popping very expensive champagne, as someone said in our YouTube chat. These guys won. They got the money, and they're going to get back in the PGA Tour, and they get to continue to compete at majors.
But as you mentioned earlier, let's recap it. The players on the PGA Tour also won today. They're going to get more.
They're going to get paid. All of them.
They're going to get more.
Now, I will say, when he says, you'll see that you're going to be the winners of this also, I refute that simply because the top guys on tour that got offered that didn't go, they could have taken the bag and eventually worked their way back in with this merger now, just like the other guys, and double, triple, quadrupled up in terms of money. Now, they'll make more money moving forward than they would have if this merger didn't happen, but they're not the ultimate winners.
Yasir Al-Rumayyan, he is he's the chair. He's running all things LIV, and he's got a chair next to Jay Monahan earlier today on CNBC. Here is LIV Tour's chairman, who is now running things.
We are investing in the game that everybody loves. The control is not there. It's the governance that we would like to have. It's going to be, a vote system in a board, and the majority in the board will be with the PGA. It's not going to be with us.
Majority vote to the PGA, but he mentions, hey, we're in it, and we're going to have some say in this. And that is a huge take a knee and bow to the king on behalf of the PGA. Here's Jay Monahan and describing earlier today the sentiment of what expectations should be for fans as they learned about this, like the players did.
A lot of people have been reading about the tension. And I said previously that we were going down our path, they were going down theirs. And today, that tension goes away. The litigation is dropped. We're announcing to the world that on behalf of this game, we're coming together. It's less about how people respond today, and it's all about how people respond in 10 years.
Well, the players are responding, and I hope they're more vocal moving forward like this, because, they were fooled here. They were told to follow what the PGA was pushing. By the way, the networks did too. The networks didn't get involved with LIV Tour either for the most part. It took YouTube, and now it's CW?
Yeah.
Now all of a sudden there'll be a clamoring to do something here too. They were doing the bidding of what Jay Monahan was saying behind the scenes last year, and it still comes out to this. You have players like Hunter Mahan, who is tweeting out things like this. I wouldn't be surprised if players are looking into options of removing Jay, or at the very least unionizing. That's from a former PGA pro. You also have Wesley Bryan, who's on tour, responding, asking who's going to be reporting from inside the room. He says, I will. We're still going strong here. Vibe is hot, in all caps. A ton of exclamation points. That was from about 10 minutes ago. And after this, Monahan goes and faces the media. They'll be asking the tough questions too. You know who else is a massive winner here, Chad? It is the gentleman who we had on that's writing the book. He's the guy who quoted Mickelson.
Alan Shipnuck?
Shipnuck. He's been on tour, PGA, and with LIV. He's writing a book on what that's been like over the last year.
Now he's writing a merger.
Not only did he follow Mickelson the same year that he took the money from the Saudis in the LIV Tour, he's also been ingrained. Like, Mickelson stopped talking to him, right? Because he thought it was off the record. He's been ingrained behind the scenes with the LIV Tour for the last year or so, and he's going to have this from behind the scenes, I would expect, based on the access that he's been given for this book that he's currently paid to write.
So
timing's everything.
Yeah, I think the big part of this story is Jay Monahan looks foolish. PGA looks pretty foolish. I feel for Brandel Chambly, who may be resigning now based on his criticism of LIV Tour the whole time.
Well, you know who else looks foolish? Tiger Woods, Rory McIlroy, anyone else, Spieth, anyone else that backed this and said that, and by the way, Tiger, who built the tour that we see today, he was not told prior to anything that anyone else found out.
He wasn't
this
in on
morning.
any talks.
You've got Rory McIlroy, who is sits on the tour policy board. He has been the face of the sport on behalf of the PGA Tour, and he's also looks like an idiot today, thanks to Jay Monahan and the PGA Tour. I can't imagine what their reaction was to this when they found out the same way that anyone trying to qualify for the U.S. Open found out.
Yeah, it's a cautionary tale, and be careful about just repeating what your bosses tell you to say.
No doubt.
Because Rory McIlroy and Tiger Woods, I think that's
Well
what they
said.
were doing. They were repeating the company line.
Yeah.
And when you do that, when your company line is wrong,
and the company knows it,
or you're run by hypocrites like the PGA, that's going to take the money or do what's best for them in the end, and you're this mercenary that's hired by them because you've got celebrity and you've got a voice to just repeat their talking points, and you do that, and then it turns the other way, and they end up taking the money with the group that they were calling evil and you were as well, then you're going to look bad in that regard too. And I don't dislike Rory McIlroy, Tiger Woods, or any of those guys for doing that, but it's a cautionary tale about, think for yourself and don't necessarily just repeat what your bosses say. Dylan on the YouTube chat says, this is basically America losing a war to Saudi Arabia. I would not go that far, but I would like to get into a bigger discussion, Hutton, about, and I jotted this down. Is this the end or the beginning? I don't look at this as a war between America and Saudi Arabia for the soul of sports or anything like that. But I would pose the question, is this the conclusion of this story of LIV versus PGA? Just like AFL versus NFL led to the NFL and AFL merging, and now we have the NFL of today. Just like NBA versus ABA, and now we have the Denver Nuggets from the ABA playing for an NBA championship in that merger. Is this that logical conclusion of not an American-led company, but PGA versus Saudi-led LIV, that we were always going to lead into this, and this was going to happen, and they were going to merge? Or is this the start of something bigger? Is this the start of what Dylan says in our YouTube chat of some sort of war being waged by Saudi Arabia on American sports? Does it start with PGA?
Well,
does it end with PGA? That would be the big question for me coming out of this.
I think that's the line of thinking that leagues on this side want us to be talking about, which isn't the truth. Jay Monahan is no different than many running leagues across this country and the world. When you're faced with it and you want to stay afloat, instead of taking the bullet to the temple, you're going to take the bag. That's just the honest truth with it.
But that's why I ask
Jay
it. Jay
Monahan wanted us to believe there was a war going on.
Yeah, but that's why I ask it, because that's the threat.
But
that Saudi Arabian money is just so big.
But what
that
threat? Like Saudi Arabian money was already backing PGA Tour advertising. They were already in bed with many of the advertisers that were corporate sponsors of the tour that they were bashing a year ago. So I think it's always been there. It's just kind of creeping up to the surface. They've always, they own Formula One. They're big into soccer. They're big into cricket. They've got money in many different leagues, including the PGA Tour. Look at the LPGA and how they're funded. This isn't the first time that PGA's made an announcement taking money from Saudi.
The threat would be, okay, we did this with PGA. Now let's go do it with tennis. Now let's go to the NBA and say, let's take the top 30 players in basketball, double their pay, let them come play in a 4-team league for us that's not NBA, and then force another merger because now we've got all their superstars, and now we've got 48% of the NBA also. And not a majority share, but then force them to merge also.
But look, I'm not going to be a hypocrite here either. The league's already taking money. They already bow to China. So what difference is it if they're taking money from Saudi?
I don't care. I'm not talking about the morality of it.
I'm not saying it's the beginning or the end. I'm just saying it's been going on for a long time.
Again, that's why I posed the question. I don't have the answer. I'm not worried about.
I'm reacting to the question about a war being started. I'm not paying into the storyline.
Yeah, you're reacting to Dylan in our YouTube chat.
PGA Tour, who wanted us to believe that this was some type of war, and all they did was crap over the players last year and over the past 12 months that have been saying that, spitting the same garbage that Jay Monahan did. When they're taking money from Nike and others that are doing the same thing just in a different country. So I just don't buy the hypocritical BS that either side wants to push on this. LIV, PGA, it's all a big lie in order to profit off of any argument or debate or any reality show that's going on involving what Netflix is filming or what Phil Shipnick is saying in his new
Alan
book.
Shipnick.
Alan Shipnick, thank you. It's all just cyclical, and it's all to prop up certain spots and use it as a banner to say we're better than you. We're doing it. We're not as bad as them. It's not even we're better than them. We're not as bad as them. It's just stupid. And
selfishly, I just don't want.
And the fact that they held a presser this morning and acted like, what did he expect the reaction to be? Speaking of Jay Monahan, as if he's like, somehow all of a sudden they're looking for a handout because technically they are a nonprofit, which is ridiculous in and of itself, and how they file that, looking for a handout like the Salvation Army. That's what Saudi came in and acted like it was Christmas Day for the Salvation Army today for the PGA Tour. I don't know how else to read this.
I understand that progress is going to happen in sports. I think selfishly I asked the question, not because I'm, conflicted morally or anything. It's more of, as a sports fan, I don't want my sports to change too dramatically. And I don't think PGA, from the fans' perspective solely, I think today was a great day for golf.
I don't think it changes that much from
the
way we view golf.
And that's what I'm getting at. From the fans' perspective solely, this is a good thing because now there's more money backing the sport. You're going to get all of your superstars back together. There's no division. They're all going to be there. We're going to get to see Brooks Koepka and Phil Mickelson and Bryson DeChambeau and Dustin Johnson pretty soon in as many tournaments as they want to play in PGA, and having a LIV schedule after this 2023 cycle. I don't know what to make about the team element being forced into it and how much I'm really into that they have in LIV. But selfishly, I just want my sports not to change too much. So does Saudi Arabia want to change American sports? I don't know. Do they just want a seat at the table? Do they want 45% interest? Do they want 100% interest? Is this the beginning or the end? I think it may be the end of this story, and there could be something bigger cooking, but I don't know what that thing is.
Well, I think they can play a major factor in the sports that are individually based, not team-based.
Tennis, an example.
Yeah. UFC comes to mind, but again, they're already partners.
They're already in bed.
WWE, same thing, already in bed and have been. They've been banging for a while. So, as far as is this going on or not, it's been going on, but Jay Monahan wants to act like it wasn't a year ago, and they were coming for your tour. They're coming for your sport. When, they're already advertising and backing many of the American brands that are advertising on the PGA Tour during the tournaments that he's speaking from a podium at. And it's all to rile up this sentiment of, patriot. We're doing this for the flag. Had nothing to do from that angle, from Jay Monahan's seat. And that's what is so, it's so, I want to say so much more. It's awful because he used the players, the top players in the world, to his own benefit, spinning this garbage, trying to keep his own tour afloat, knowing that LIV Tour was coming and they weren't going anywhere else. And they didn't even have a TV deal. And they took down the PGA in a year, in a calendar year.
Well, they got the PGA to merge. I wouldn't say they took them down.
That is I don't know how much to view it.
Well, they don't own it. PGA is still the majority shareholder.
Oh, today?
It's a massive victory, but I think saying they took them down is different. It's not like the PGA is eliminated and LIV Tour is the only one left standing now. I'm saying they won and that they got them to merge with them and acknowledge them as a force, but they still have a minority stake. They didn't take them down.
Minority stake or not, this was a tour that was keeping players who joined LIV off of the PGA Tour events. and now we sit here and come one, come all. Welcome home.
Dylan says, wait until that Saudi money comes into NIL.
Welcome home. It's already there.
I'm sure it is in some way.
It's already there. I mean, think about all the businesses that these big boosters work for or own, and where their investors are coming from. It's already there. Don't be stupid. Don't be that dumb and naive to think it's not, because the next headline will be clickbait for you if you don't believe that now. I'm not surprised to learn that, Saudi's got all this money and they're trying to buy sports.
I don't know what that means, though. Like, I don't care who backs the sports leagues I like.
I don't think it changes.
If what I like about American sports doesn't change that much.
Well, they had to change.
You see what I'm saying?
They had to change the golf aspect with the three. You had the 3 rounds, no cut. You had to lure guys in to begin with.
Well, they lured them in with money, not the format.
But beyond that, the format. Phil Mickelson's also right when he points that out. I mean, the format does factor in. You're only playing how many events? 8, 10?
Yeah, no, they're paying them a lot more to do a lot less. I don't think the argument from them is that this is superior format for golf.
It's not superior.
This is how we got them in.
Yeah, but this is all they needed.
But that's
now they have not just a seat
listen,
at the table.
Listen for a second to what I'm saying. I don't care. I understand Saudi money is everywhere. I don't care if they're hold on. I don't care if they're backing leagues or investing, as long as it doesn't change the fundamentals of what I love about American sports. I don't care about the money, the Wizard of Oz behind the curtain that's funding things, as much as I care about the product. And I don't know that they're coming in to carpet bomb American sports and turn it into something more Saudi. I think they're coming in to get a seat at the table.
Well, I'll say this. This is why they won. There were 3 leagues that merged today. How many leagues spoke? Tours. 2.
I don't even know what the other league is. Totally.
But again,
honesty. What is that other league?
That's a part of Jay Monahan's statement.
Yeah.
That's all I need to know about who's running things. Because one tour has the voice, and meanwhile, Jay Monahan is running.
Colin just said DP World Tour. I still don't know what that is.
Jay Monahan's running a tour.
I can read it. I've never watched it.
Jay Monahan is running a tour where his own players don't have a voice before the news is breaking. Optically, I don't know how else to take it other than this is a teabag from LIV Tour.
It's not a takeover.
June of 2023. It's not a takeover. It is a huge victory.
That's what I told you.
And now, what it is capture the flag. That's exactly what happened today.
They accomplished their mission, which was to be acknowledged as a force and to get a seat at the table. And the PGA had to bow down and do that, but the PGA still controls it. And it doesn't surprise me that the 2 sides we heard from are 1 PGA, who still got the majority stake, and 2 LIV, who's now in the game.
Well, but also keep in mind, too, like the aspect of how does it change the sport? What if the top names that truly believe in what they said refuse to play? Say, we're done. We're not playing based on what happened here and what we've said over the last 12 months, what we have stood for. Jay Monahan can backtrack. We're not doing that. That's the only way it changes what we see on tour.
Yeah, and what that would change is, once again, Saudi Arabia, who has no problem spending money and losing it, they'd be investing a ton of money based on this agreement into a diminishing product, because now suddenly some of the top stars in PGA won't participate. They're going to take their ball and go home now that they're a part of it. So it's actually a worse investment for LIV at that point. That's how it changes.
Well, regardless, here's what happened. Jay Monahan either kept his job, because if he's fired or if he resigns, he's immediately rehired by LIV.
Yeah.
Or he signed the paperwork that says, here's my resignation. And he did that by acknowledging that no one really knew about this until they announced it today.
I think he's going to get a big check. He's going to go off and retire. And he's going to hope that 10-year clock that just started he's talking about, that we're all going to see in 10 years how great this was. He's going to count down the days in that 10-year clock, and he's going to come back and do interviews 10 years from now and say, see, I told you this was great for the game of golf. I am your conquering hero. Accept me. One and all, come to me. Feed me grapes. I am your champion. That's what will happen in a decade.
Oh, and on your way up the steps for the Pritz, all hail the king above me.
Now make this
Saudi
way, please, and come see the Sultan, who's upstairs.
Your Majesty.
The Crown Prince awaits you.
It is Phil Mickelson.
And it's not me. So, please meet his concubine, Phil, who's actually lost 20 more pounds in the next 10 years.
The right of prima nocta doesn't reside in the PGA Tour right now.
It's a constant right.
Coming up, we discuss John Morant and much more. We'll circle back to reaction from the players' meeting with Jay Monahan, and we'll see if we see some news come out from the presser with the media involving today's merger. It's all straight ahead on Hot Mic.
My primary complaint is when you let somebody cross the street while you're driving and they purposely take their time when they see that they are waiting for you crossing the street. That is my primary complaint, and it drives me crazy.
My primary complaint is people who talk on speakerphone in public.
People that chew too loud.
Number one pet peeve, telemarketers. Number two pet peeve, when people don't understand the menu that they're serving. Number three pet peeve, when people ask for change but they have no quarters. Number four pet peeve, parallel parking.
My primary complaint is I can't just go to a bar and have a nice quiet beer. There's all this live music every freaking where. Like, I'm just trying to go to a bar, relax, have a beer, watch the game, but no, we gotta have these guitar players and these bands. Why can't I just hang out and just relax, have a beer, and watch the Memphis Grizzlies? I mean, is that too much to ask?
I do not appreciate or condone anybody that litters. I think you got to keep your planet clean. It's turning your nose up to everybody that has to clean your up with littering.
My primary complaint would be wobbly tables at restaurants.
Another pet peeve I have is no courtesy flushing. No one believes in that. Thank you. Another pet peeve I have is when people have AirPods in. Excuse me. Another pet peeve I have is when people have AirPods in and they're singing louder so everyone can hear what they're not supposed to listen to.
When people eat smelly food on the airplane.
Dishes left in the sink.
My primary complaint is when I'm out to eat with somebody and they bite their fork as they are putting the fork in their mouth to eat.
When people bite their fork and scrape that, and when they're eating dinner, you can hear like it's like nails on a chalkboard. Hell no.
My primary complaint is when people complain about me when I bite my fork.
Those folks who are in the airport talking on their cell phone very loud so everybody else can hear what they're saying, even though we really don't care.
My primary complaint are drivers who do not stop on a pedestrian crosswalk. Period.
My last pet peeve is that when people text you, they text you that they're busy, or if you call them, they answer and say they can't talk. Either way, just don't respond. You can't text me, don't text me back. And if you can't answer the phone, don't answer the phone to tell me you can't talk.
6th and Peabody, our location with EHA Beer and Old Smoky Moonshine. Hunt and Withrow with you. Hot mic across the OutKick network. If you're watching on YouTube, we hope you'll join us in the chat. And you can certainly give us a thumbs up if you're enjoying the show. And if you haven't already, many of you have, subscribe to the channel. You can catch all the great shows across the network right here and on YouTube, OutKick.com, and this great radio partner that you're listening to. Stephen A. Smith is questioning whether or not the NBA community is thinking long-term or even short-term involving Ja Morant. Chad, this is something I posed from day one with this. Suspensions, fine. What are they doing to really – and you can't bring a horse to water, right? But beyond a suspension, what is going on behind the scenes to, in any effort necessary, try to get through to him of what, not just what he's throwing away, but what could happen. And Stephen A. is saying, I'm not questioning if he's going to be in the league in 5 years. I'm wondering if he's going to be alive in 5 years. And that's what we're seeing. That's the path that he's on, not because he's just brandishing a weapon. It's the idea that if he's out somewhere, he's already putting it out that I'm packing. So the expectation is he's going to have a gun on him. And we know what comes with that based on how he wants to be portrayed, how he's portraying himself over and over and over again. Perception's reality in many cases. And he's going to walk into the wrong situation and he's not going to walk out. And I think that's the brutal honesty that Stephen A. is mentioning that I agree with. It needs to be more than just some suspension that we react to over 24 hours. If, in fact, you're actually on board with the idea of him improving what he's doing instead of just being the court gesture or your entertainment on social media, which is in many cases what this is in terms of sharing a video and trying to get likes and retweets and follows and clicks. Because ultimately people are profiting off of this guy and the debate of whether or not he's going to be suspended and whether or not certain players who don't want us to believe that any suspension should happen, if they're right or they're wrong, it's more of a debate about that than it is whether or not this guy's going to get help.
Yeah, the one part of that Stephen A. Smith quote that jumped out to me was he feels compelled, and people around him say this, he feels compelled to have a gun on him at all times for some reason. Mm-hmm. One can try to connect the dots on that maybe he's into something illegal. Maybe he's got people after him. Maybe he feels threatened in some way, or he's operating in some world where he has to have a gun on him. Stephen A. Smith didn't say all that, but you can infer whatever you want from that. He feels compelled to have a gun on him at all times. That's not great for Ja Morant. I simply ask the question, what is the league's responsibility to help someone that's not willing to help themselves? I don't know what Ja Morant's level of personal accountability is. I don't. I don't know if he wants to change, if he wants to stay clean with all of this, if he wants to get better, or if he is enamored with his lifestyle that he's in right now and doesn't want to change. And if people around him are either unwilling to get through to him or can't, and his parents can't, and he doesn't care.
Yeah.
I think it's an interesting debate on what is the personal responsibility of an employer to then come in and say, we have to make sure we fix you if that person doesn't want to get fixed. If that person just wants to play basketball and have you leave them alone, then that can't happen if you continue to embarrass that organization. The organization we're talking about now are the Memphis Grizzlies and the NBA. If they can't get through to Ja Morant, I don't know that they're trying, but if they can't and his friends, family, parents, everyone else can as well because he doesn't want to change, I don't think it's on the NBA to have to force him into rehab or do anything like that. They just get rid of him. And that sounds cold and heartless, but hey, this is America. This is business. This is cold, hard money. If you negatively affect my brand and you're hurting me and we've warned you once, we've suspended you, and now we're suspending you again and it doesn't get any better, you wash your hands of it. I don't know that that's how that's on the NBA at that point to fix him.
Well, then you're saying then just ban him and don't let him back in the league. Because if you're not going to do anything to help the situation, why allow him back in the league if you're suspending him for something he did, but he did nothing to prove that he's he's trying to do more than what he's already done, which is nothing. I mean, 2 months after he told the commissioner he was going to, do things the right way, it happens again. So I think even if the league's doing it for optics, they owe it to that whole sentiment to do more than just the drive-through therapy or whatever, right?
Well,
the drive-through counseling.
Let me though. I want to clear up responsibility here. He owes that to himself.
Sure.
To get better and to continue to make the money he can make, if we're talking about capitalism, but also to live the life that he should live with the money he's making and the influence he has. He's got to decide to go and get better. I thought the whole thing was a sham initially with the drive-through therapy.
Yeah, it was.
The interview with Jalen Rose, that was total softballs, set up in advance, pre-prepared publicist statements from John Morant. He wasn't better. He didn't care. He didn't think he did anything wrong with the gun in the strip club. I didn't get the sense he did. I thought he was saying everything that a lawyer or publicist or agent would tell him to say. But if he's unwilling to change, I don't believe it's on the league to change him at that point.
Yeah.
They just suspend him for as long as possible, and if he doesn't meet the criteria to come back, he's not back in the league. And he's a 30 for 30 in 5 years.
But the criteria that was set forth to begin with allowed this to be where we are, right? Like it was, you're right, it was a sham. So it's got to be more than that, even if it's not on the league to rehabilitate this guy's mindset on what he's doing or what he's not doing and why he's got to go on social media and do certain things. And why he's got to go threaten. Why he's got to be sent to his guys are sent down to, threaten whatever's happening at the Foot Locker.
Yeah, look, I would say I'm sure the Grizzlies are trying to give him good advice, people around that team and people in the front office, and everyone's doing that. I mean, at some point, you just got to tell the guy, like, look, we're paying you a max contract. That's what we paid you. That's how much we believed in you at the time. We're telling you what you need to do. If you don't want to hear it, there's nothing I can do for you at that point. You're a lost cause. And I hate to think of people as lost causes. I don't think he is at all. But if he doesn't want to try to change, even if it's not just for him, if it's, hey, I want to stay clean and not get in trouble because I love the game of basketball and I want to keep making money playing basketball, fine, whatever. Whatever it takes for you to change, whatever the impetus is, whatever the motivation is, find it, use it, get better. But that's not the league's responsibility.
Well, but the league is it's no different than any league. The NFL is about the shield. The NBA is about the brand. It's not just about Ja Morant. Ja Morant's going somewhere with a gun.
Yep.
According to accusations reports, he's flashing a gun to a teenager at a pickup basketball game when he comes back out of the house after trying to fight him. So with that in mind, he also represents the NBA, whether or not the NBA has any responsibility whatsoever, without trying to facilitate help for him more than what they've done. That will be a question if it has to do with someone else being involved or, God forbid, killed based on some stupid action that not facilitate, I'm not saying facilitate, but stood back and acted like some drive-through counseling was going to be miraculous and we'll get through the season before we address it any further. You just can't wash your hands of that if you actually mean what you're saying about we need to send a message. It's not just for Ja Morant. It's about the entire league. Ja Morant's not the only one carrying a gun around. He's the only one bragging and boasting about it on social media every chance they go live on Instagram Live. I think that's the point. He had guys in the NFL. Sauce Gardner was saying, "Hey man, don't know what you're doing, but whenever I've got a gun, I'm not flaunting it. I'm not bragging about it." Then he deletes that tweet. So I don't think it's just Ja. That's why I think the NBA has to do something.
Well, they gotta hammer him. I mean, look, they got to suspend him and show that they're tough on this type of stuff. And we got Ace in the YouTube chat saying, does Ja have a valid conceal permit? I don't know, but keep in mind there were incidents before this, before flashing a gun at the strip club.
This is not one incident.
He's threatened gun violence. He threatened gun violence after punching a high school kid at his house in a game, allegedly. He's threatened violence to a Foot Locker employee. The league had to investigate Ja Morant and his crew pointing a laser pointer at the Indiana Pacers team bus. So this is not a one-off type thing. Well, he's a legal gun-carrying, gun-owning citizen. He can take film with it on Instagram Live. No, it's not that at all with Ja Morant. Look, if I'm the league, I suspend him for a season, half a season at least. put in a lot of criteria about rehab, counseling, whatever. He's got to cross all these hurdles.
Stay off social.
Stay off social media. Yeah, don't do anything stupid. You keep your nose clean for half a year or a year, you're back.
Yeah.
You're back collecting that contract. You're back with the Grizzlies, all those things. But if not, I mean, I think it's now it's got to be a zero tolerance policy. One more huge screw up like this, and this guy's banned from playing basketball in the NBA. He'll be over in, where is Dwight Howard playing now? China? Is he in China?
Taiwan, I think.
Taiwan? He'll be in Taiwan with Dwight Howard.
Chad, coming back, I'm reading through Twitter quotes and summaries of what Jay Monahan's telling the media. Wait until you hear how long this negotiation has been going on between Monahan, the PGA Tour, and the LIV Tour. That's next on Hot Mic.
What you're experiencing is the bold taste of a Southern legend. Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey, authentic Tennessee mountain-style spirits. We believe in crafting flavors that were born from tradition but defy expectation, and pioneering a new experience with every sip. Because if it doesn't do this, it ain't this. Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey. Come on.
Welcome into OutKick the show. I am Clay Travis, your fearless leader. I am going to continue to argue that sports is one of the great unifying forces in all of American life. ESPN is a sinking ship. Democrats are now the party of the white, woke college graduate.
We live in the land of participation trophies.
You got to lean into the turns. You really got to lean into the turns.
When Leah Thomas walked in that first day, it got silent, and every girl was uncomfortable.
Very difficult to go back-to-back years in the NFL with the #1 overall pick.
I've been out of LA long enough to have forgotten that libs, no matter how ridiculous the scenario, are gonna live. Another week of inflation, another week with Biden with COVID, and another set of losers to crown. People don't watch the WNBA on TV, in person, on a plane, on a train, on a bus, or on purpose.
The scary thing, Tommy, is in the history of this government, I've never seen them give anything back that they've taken.
Oh no, they never do.
And they won't.
We've seen coaches throw water bottles. We've seen coaches act like idiots. We've seen coaches slap other coaches. But I think if you're involved in carjacking, you're inherently a rotten human being. The level of stupid that sometimes gets on our YouTube chat just gives me a headache. You're born a male, play with males. You're born a female, play with females. Don't at me about it, people.
I believe this person is the greatest player anybody alive will ever see. How can you hate Derek Jeter? A guy's on-base percentage tells me his batting eye, and a guy's slugging percentage tells me if he's a threat. That's the kind of guy that throws a no-hitter, that effectively wild guy.
Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey. Bold taste of a Southern legend.
We have been unpacking a lot from today's news that the PGA Tour has merged with LIV. Yes, if you're just joining us, that happened. The presser is ongoing. Quotes from the presser with Jay Monahan, with the media. Chatter, I just react in real time here.
Okay. These are Jay Monahan quotes.
Well, yes.
From the presser.
Yeah, or
All
a summary,
Jay Monahan,
or a
right?
summary
Okay.
of what he's saying from Kyle Porter. I'm reading through. Monahan on whether LIV Golf exists a year from now. I don't want to make any statements or predictions. What is in place is to make a good faith effort to look at team golf and the role it will play going forward. So he's not committing to that in totality, okay?
Let me go ahead and answer that for him. It's not going to exist. They will merge into the PGA Tour, and there will be team golf elements at different tournaments.
Monahan mentions, quote, taking a competitor off the board, end quote, as a reason for the merger. Okay.
They could argue the same, but all right.
Yeah, no doubt. Jay Monahan said these negotiations took about 7 weeks. It was him and 2 other PGA Tour board members in the room, 0 players, and the deal was finalized last night. 7 weeks. Number one, they were able to keep it quiet for 7 weeks. Number two, 7 weeks of negotiations without any player acknowledgement, input, filling guys in that had been loyal to you. Nothing.
7 weeks ago would have
a
put
lot
it
to unpack with that.
a week and a half after the Masters, if you're going by a strict 7-week schedule, looking at the calendar. And it was right, we talked about this, right around the Masters.
Scott Stallings came on and talked to us about it.
The whole vibe, cool.
He said there's really no discussion.
Animosity, no
But
problems.
The last
Rory
time,
wasn't saying much.
The last time it was really, I felt like we were trying to make it something, was the Masters Champions Dinner. That's the last time it really, we had headlines that, nothing really happened there. No one talked about LIV. Since then, there's been nothing about LIV. You're right. And that times out with this.
And that's why I kind of refuse to believe that Rory and others, big-name people, didn't know something. Didn't know that at least talks were happening because they stopped talking about it.
But think about Rory. Rory, though, stopped talking about it because he wasn't playing great. He wasn't making cuts. And they, again, like, he was dangled out there as the face of everything that they were about. And, I mean, he took the shrapnel through this. It's such a bad look.
Quickly, Hunt, before you get back to that, Greg Norman has spoken.
Okay.
Just now, he tweeted. His tweet reads, a great day in global golf for players and fans alike. The journey continues, 2 exclamation points.
But Greg Norman may be the biggest pawn in this because Greg Norman, he finally found quote-unquote partners, right, to make his dream, to fund what he wanted to do. And then his partners kicked him to the curb, and he did all the heavy lifting. You know, he took, like Mickelson, he was the face of this movement to the Saudi-backed LIV Tour. And, you know, he was compensated well.
Yeah.
But he has nothing to do with this now.
No, he's a very rich pawn. And he's fine being that.
Yeah, but I think everyone is, to some degree. There's a lot of pawns that are currently on the PGA Tour. Monahan said negotiations took 7 weeks, no players. Quote, I recognize everything I've said in the past is my past position. I recognize the people are going to call me a hypocrite. Anytime I say anything, I said it with the information I had in the moment. Jay, I don't know how you have any other information now that you reacted to then when you're pointing to all of the different factors as to why you needed to be loyal and faithful to the PGA Tour instead of backing the LIV Saudi-funded tour.
Can you imagine if he just broke out a bunch of files and said, actually, the Crown Prince presented me with some information on 9/11 that I'd like to present to you now that's a little contrary to what most Americans believe, and starts going through it. Let's turn to page 48 first to begin.
Crazy,
there's no info that he would have gotten in the last 7 weeks that would, oh, you guys are good. Oh, you are in for the good of the game of golf. Yeah, let's do business. Let's merge. Come on.
Now, Rich Lerner is reporting that the talks have already started and are underway about a path for players who are on LIV Tour to get back to the PGA Tour. There will be financial concessions if those players want to do that. But now you get the best of both. I mean, they're already acknowledging that you exist. They tried not to.
Yeah.
And then the major championships acknowledged them, and they were really the bridge between all this.
It's going to be very easy now, especially after this LIV season concludes, this 2023 season, for all those guys to get back and participate in tournaments they want to play in.
You know what, though? you mentioned this earlier and posed the question about how it changes. I don't think how we take in the PGA Tour changes whatsoever. The young players that they've established, the faces of the sport, that's all going to be there. And if you're a casual fan, you're watching the majors. U.S. Open's coming up. You're still watching because of the individual star power, right?
Yeah.
Not what logo's on which shirt and the money that's backing the logo that the player's wearing. So I think at the end of it, it's still going to be the same product.
It's going to be.
You're just not going to have the jokes from Jim Nantz talking about whether or not anyone saw Brooks Koepka play the previous week.
Yeah, Jim Nantz is another one that's going to have to do an about face.
A lot of people, man.
With a lot of his joking.
But they have to do but they also, when they were saying all this, they did it with the sentiment that everyone was going and pulling in the same direction, except for the very top of the PGA with Monahan.
Well, and maybe someone out there is, like you mentioned, a true believer and will back out.
We'll see.
Maybe Jim Nantz is
That's
like,
the
I'm
next
not ever going to do golf again. Or someone else says,
Well,
I'm not going to support this.
Yeah, I mean, that's the next storyline, though, is what do the players who have backed this from day one on behalf of the PGA Tour say now when they speak?
It's going to be amazing when Rory McIlroy joins the China-backed league that's about to form. And then someone's going to have to educate him on all of the human rights violations in that country.
They're at the Canadian
and
Open.
That's going to start a whole other deal. And then we're going to learn
Back
that
at it
Nikes
tomorrow,
are made
3
in
o'clock
China.
Eastern.
It's going to be a huge revelation.